Biden condemning the attempt, and of course there'll be all sorts of investigations and inquiries and all sorts of inquiries into what actually happened and how. Trump goes to the Republican convention this week, and I'm sure that this will be a major issue there. Other big issue, of course, here, and the president was speaking during the cabinet lechotla. There was a cabinet lechotla over the weekend. Very interesting to see all of our ministers together in the same place, from different parties, and already the PAC has said, for example, that land expropriation will happen now because their minister is the Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform. Other people saying, well, no, it won't. And so there are all sorts of conversations around that. A couple of people have been talking sort of on the sidelines, if you like. Willem Kosini-Hlabisa, leader of the IFP, he said that he'll make sure that you just don't have this instability in local government. Park Stow, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, saying that black economic empowerment and employment equity or affirmative action will remain. And of course, what's interesting is the DA oppose that. They've got the Deputy Minister in that department, Andrew Whitfield. So how the sort of relationship between Tau and Whitfield kind of move together, I think is going to be very, very interesting. A lot more coming out, I must just say, around VBS, and this automatically seems to take the story to the EFF, to the Economic Freedom Fighters. So the chair, as you know, the chair of the former chair of the VBS Building Society, of the VBS Mutual Bank, Chifio Matodzi, he signed that affidavit last week, but immediately seemed to get leaked. I don't know how these things emerge into the public at some point. Talking about all of the money that was stolen from VBS. And part of this, of course, is the 16 million rand that went to the EFF, and he's spoken about this meeting he had with Julius Malema and Floyd Chivambu. I think Marshall Dlamini was there, but didn't play an active part. And we'll actually hear from the EFF. Their former chair, Dali Mpofu, has agreed to speak to you after 7 o'clock, so we'll hear his version on that. But there are questions, I think, to answer here. Questions about why the money was paid. And the EFF, as I understand it, what they've said so far on this is that it was a donation. It's a bit curious to me that you attack someone in public. The EFF were attacking VBS in public over the fact that they had lent over the fact that VBS had lent money to former President Jacob Zuma to pay back his Nkandla debt. So, I mean, the roots of this go back many years. But sort of curious to me that an organization that you've been attacking will now pay you money. And I suppose the question becomes, is there a quid pro quo? Was there something for something? Maybe there wasn't, but let's see. We'll hear from Dali Mpofu a little later. I think there are important questions to ask there, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that one plays out. Also, by the way, Chifio Matodzi, he's going to serve 15 years in prison. He starts his sentence this week. As I understand it, he'll be going to prison this week. If you put all of the sentences together, it's something like 495 years or something. So there's clearly a sort of deal. And why this is interesting is if you look at the affidavit, you look at the fact he's going for 15 years, well, then maybe the NPA is going to move on something else. I think that's sort of the question. Other issues, the big issue at the moment as well, is what's happened in KwaZulu-Natal. There have been wildfires. They're very serious fires. And we can see, 13 people. I was amazed. I thought it was 2 or 3 last week. Now, 13 people have died as a result. They're in the Ilembe area, the Utukela area, the Zululand area as well. And then, even though it's been very wet in the Western Cape, we've all been talking about that, very cold in other areas last week. In KwaZulu-Natal, there are fire warnings. That's how dry the weather is at the moment. So very important to just keep an eye on that situation. And people very worried about that. So, yeah, we'll find out from the people managing that situation in KwaZulu-Natal. We'll hear from the KwaZulu-Natal provincial government about that as we go through the morning together. And then also, do you remember during the violence 3 years ago in 2021 in KZN and Gauteng, and particularly in Durban, was this massive warehouse. It's called the UPL warehouse. It was basically a company was storing a huge amount of all sorts of chemicals and things. And in a way, from what we can tell, it looks like, and the claim against them, I suppose, is that they were simply not managing the stuff they had properly, and they also hadn't told the right people that they had all of the stuff. Very, very dangerous chemicals we're talking about. And that warehouse was then raided by people who were rioting. It was set on fire. The stuff leaked into the environment, into rivers, had a huge impact. I think there was a smell there for quite a long time. Well, now people are laying charges. They're asking for 1.5 billion rand in damages to that, for that. And it's very interesting to see that play out because we never really got to the bottom of it. There was a time they went in, a UPL appointed a spin doctor. He spoke to that person. Didn't seem to really work for them. I thought it was a little bit messy. The other big issue we'll be looking at from 8:30, and I'm quite looking forward to it in a strange way, is around the census, which was conducted in 2022, released last year in 2023, which said that there are 62 million people, 62 million of us. And in fact, now there's a sort of sharp critique of that. From people who have a lot of experience in this, who say, no, some of the numbers are wrong. There's only 61 million people, for example, that these sort of estimates for the age groups are not correct, all of those things. And that'll be your mediated conversation a little later. I think that's going to be quite important. If you don't have the right census data, very difficult to plan properly for the future. All right, nice to have you along with us this morning. You know how to get in touch at 086 000 2032. You SMS 41391. You tweet us FM Radio and at Stephen Grootes. You send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614 104 107. There's going to be a lot going on. I get the sense that it's actually going to be quite a busy week. If you look ahead to Parliament on Thursday night with President Cyril Ramaphosa, and for the first time, I think he will be facing a National Assembly and a National Council of Provinces, a joint sitting, along with MPs from Umkhonto weSizwe, because they weren't there the first time. And so this is going to be a very interesting moment. Nice to have you along this morning. Good morning. It's coming up now for 6:15.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
And Musa, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
How are you doing? Did you get any rest this weekend? Nobody does.
I actually did. I actually did.
Good. What's coming up today?
Well, the 3-day Climate Resilience Symposium that's hosted by the National Treasury working with the Presidential Climate Commission and the World Bank starts today, and the event seeks to eliminate structural and financial barriers to mobilize capital for our country's just energy transition. And President Cyril Ramaphosa will be delivering the keynote address at the opening session. So over the next 3 days, stakeholders will be discussing the importance of climate change issues by improving government coordination and mainstreaming climate change into governmental fiscal systems. And following the President's announcement of the new members of the National Executive for the 7th administration, the Ministry of Police, consisting of the Minister Senzo Mchunu as well as his 2 deputies, will today be taking the public and the media into confidence at a briefing to outline the ministry's priorities as far as the safety and security of the country is concerned. And
it's very interesting because Senzo Mchunu, a long political history, but in my experience, a sort of different public posture to Becky Cele. Very different kind of character. I mean, I don't know them personally, but just watching them, I get the sense that they're very different. Yeah,
true though. The Cooperative Governance Minister Velinkosini Hlabisa will also be visiting areas affected by the extreme weather conditions in the Western Cape, and schools are opening there today. And the visit comes as the provincial government approached the National Disaster Management Centre for a provincial disaster classification. In court, 4 suspects allegedly involved in the disappearance of 6-year-old Jocelyn Smith are set to appear in the Vredenburg Magistrates Court. And Jocelyn went missing from a home nearly 5 months ago, and 4 people, including her mother, Killy Smith, and a boyfriend, are facing several charges in connection with the disappearance. And lastly, 3 police officers arrested for robbing a man of his cell phone at a petrol station in Welkom are expected to appear in the Welkom Magistrates Court. And in pictures circulating on social media platforms, you actually see the 2 men and a woman wearing SAPS bulletproof vests and an SAPS mask entering the petrol station. So the suspects were traced to Gauteng, where they were arrested on Saturday by the Welkom SAPS Serious and Violent Crime Unit.
Sure. All right. Thank you very much indeed. 17 minutes after 6.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
All right, let's have a look now at your weather around the country. Tshwane this morning, fine, 4 and 22. Johannesburg, fine, 0 and 21. Vereeniging, fine, minus 3 and 20. Bombela, cloudy in the morning, otherwise fine, 9 and 21. Polokwane, fine, 5 and 24. Mahikeng, fine, 0 and 21. Vryburg, morning, frost, otherwise fine, minus 4 and 19. Mangung, morning, frost, otherwise fine, minus 4 and 15. Kimberley, morning, frost, otherwise fine, minus 5 and 15. Uppington, morning, frost, otherwise fine, minus 1 and 19. Cape Town, partly cloudy, becoming fine from the evening, a light to moderate northerly wind, 9 and 14. George, partly cloudy in the morning, otherwise fine, a moderate to fresh northwesterly wind, 7 and 16. Gqeberha, partly cloudy, a moderate to fresh westerly, 11 and 18. East London, fine, a moderate to fresh westerly wind, 11 and 19. eThekwini, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, isolated showers and rain, a moderate to fresh southerly wind, 13 and 22. Richards Bay, cloudy, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, isolated showers and rain, a moderate northwesterly wind, 16 and 22. And Pietermaritzburg this morning, cloudy at first, otherwise partly cloudy, 10 and 22.
Get ready for an exciting show. Believe it, family. It's a big day for 25K. In this brand new show, join us as we follow couples across South Africa on their journey to create their dream wedding for only 25K.
Our biggest hope is that everything fits in the budget of 25K.
There were many things that we had to do in 3 days' time.
We'll share in their disappointments.
It's also stress. Somebody let me down early this morning.
It's a really expensive dress. I don't know how you're going to afford to buy this dress.
And celebrate their triumphs.
I always dreamed of this day, but ke sa tsebe hore na e tlo phethahala jwang.
Thank you to everyone that made this day.
A big day for 25K starts the 9th of June, Sunday, 7:30 p.m. only on SABC2.
Channel the forgiving spirits of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Lee Bell shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
20 minutes after 6, good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa has now condemned the act of violence that saw a person shooting at the former president and current presidential candidate in the United States, Donald Trump. Trump was shot in the ear by a 20-year-old man who was then killed by the U.S. Secret Service. Trump has vowed to continue campaigning and will appear at the Republican convention this week. Professor John Stremlau is an honorary professor of international relations at Wits University. Professor Stremlau, good morning.
Good morning to you, Stephen.
The political atmosphere already very highly charged in the United States. Now we have this incident. I mean, from a distance, things look almost quite scary in the U.S. going into this campaign.
Well, they could be, and they may well be, but for now, let's focus on getting the facts on the assassination attempt and the killing of Corey Campador, and as he was protecting his family, and the two others that were also hit by bullets from this AR-15 on the rooftop nearby. And we have got to get the facts, and Trump, and Biden made that plain yesterday. Biden is doing a very good job, in my view, of trying to detoxify American politics right now, which you alluded to. He has suspended his campaign. He's cut all advertisements to nothing. He's calling for unity in the country. He's condemning violence. He's expressing empathy with the Trump family, and he called Trump last night twice. But the messenger, Biden, is the problem, showing his age, and Trump, by contrast, had his bloody ear but slowed down the Foreign Service long enough to get a photo op with his fist raised and calling out "fight, fight, fight" to the rally. So we are all waiting to see, because we're all falling apart as we get older. And Biden unfortunately did it on that debate the other night, and so the American public, I think, will return Trump to the White House unless there is some, and that's got to be prevented above all things, unless there's some rebooting of the campaigns.
I mean, does this, define the rest of the campaign then? And as I say, the market's immediately pricing in a Trump victory. Quite quickly. It's quite a strange thing that someone tries to shoot you and now suddenly your campaign gets a boost. But that's politics.
That is politics, Stephen. And, the way in which South Africans have detoxified the conflicts within the ANC is the GNU. And I wish President Ramaphosa well in this pursuit of trying to lower the temperature and remind everyone in this country, but also in the United States, that there are universal values that the democracies supposedly stand for. Political equality, we're all one human family, and the South Africans have demonstrated that in the way in which the apartheid was ended, and then now at the International Court of Justice. And the Americans have been more influential by progress in civil rights than, frankly, in Vietnam or Afghanistan or Iraq. And so this is a moment for rethinking our priorities and moving forward together. The empathy that Biden showed toward Trump family and others who are injured is admirable, but he does show his age, and that's a problem.
And Trump's message now, that image, one or two of the images from yesterday are going to be completely iconic. And there's so many American flags in the background because it was a political rally. The fist in the air. It's an incredible image in a way, and is going to be impossible to campaign against, I suspect.
Well, he is still a convicted felon, and he does lie, and he lied in that debate constantly. And he is a racist and a sexist and all sorts of other things that are associated with someone who privileges his own situation above the public good. And Biden is an admirable public servant who I will vote for if he is the candidate, but doing so grudgingly and worried that he can't beat Trump, because the challenge for Americans and for the world is to beat Donald Trump, because he's going to apply tariffs that will cause inflation back home and hurt other countries. He will be focused on first America first, and insulation and isolationism and anti-immigration and all sorts of other things that really will have to be unwound subsequent to his serving a second term, but we have to deny him that opportunity.
This is also going to define, every question is going to be about security now. And of course, that takes us to the issue about guns. And nothing is going to change there in the United States from what I can see.
Well, you don't know. This is a defining moment, and it's too early to tell. But you're right about how did this guy get to the roof and be not discovered and have an AR assault weapon, 15 assault weapon with rapid fire, and shoot and critically injure 3 people and barely missed Trump. And if Trump had been killed, because the Republican Party has become a cultist, who would they have replaced him with? It's a one-man show, and that's not right for a democracy. And Mandela, when he stepped down, was 82. and Biden will be 82 when he's inaugurated. If he's inaugurated for a second term, he shouldn't run for a second term, Stephen. And but there is only a month between now and the Chicago convention of the Democrats, and so I'm afraid that Biden is so hard over, but he could reassess, and the public is concerned that he can't beat, or the Democrats are concerned that he can't beat Trump.
Professor John Stremnow, thanks very much indeed. Honorary Professor of International Relations at Wits University. 28 after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, amazing game last night.
Oh, it was. And a tough one. But hey, I think England, there's always next season for a comeback. It was the Spain substitute, Mikel Oyarzabal, who slid in for that 86th minute winner to earn his team that 2-1 Euro 2024 final victory over England last night, denying them their first major international trophy for 58 years. England's Jude Bellingham says he's heartbroken.
I still felt we was in the game, even when they scored to make it 2-1. The thing is about this team, and we showed it throughout the tournament, is we're never going to quit. We're not going to go out, quitting, not wanting to take risks towards the end of the game. And I think we had a couple of headers blocked off the line at the end there, and it's really tough. But we've got to find a way to pick ourselves back up and go again.
Meanwhile, Argentina, they've claimed the Copa America trophy after a hard-fought match against Colombia. The team, they remain goalless until extra time when Lautaro Martinez scored the decisive goal, and that was at the 112th minute. Rugby, the junior Springboks, they fell short at the Under-20 Championships as the hosts were knocked out by Argentina in the 5th place semi-final in Cape Town. Now taking a 24-10 lead into half-time, Argentina's Under-20 side held out against a strong comeback from the junior box to win 34-24 yesterday. In the meantime, more rugby. This time we have the news of the Springboks. They've held on to their number 1 spot despite drawing with Ireland. That was on Saturday. That 25-24 victory for the second-ranked Ireland in Durban levelled the 2-test series after the Boks won by 7 points in Pretoria last week. Tennis action, Carlos Alcaraz powered to victory in over and out of sorts Novak Djokovic to retain the men's singles title at Wimbledon, while in the women's draw, the Czech Barbora Krejcikova battled past the 7th-ranked Jasmine Paolini of Italy. Now, Krejcikova's win comes 26 years after her mentor, Jana Novotná, who died of cancer in 2017 at the age of 49, claimed the Wimbledon title.
Well, the only thing that was going through my head was that I miss Jana a lot, and it was just very emotional moment to see me on a board right next to her. I think she would be proud. I think she would be really excited that I'm on a same board as she is, because Wimbledon was super special for her.
More sport, top of the hour on Sunrise. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. More to come. The story around Intercape and why it seems that police will not investigate the violence ostensibly by the taxi industry against Intercape. That's next. You with SFM leading the conversation Monday morning, 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the South African Police Service is launching a specialised social media monitoring unit aimed at tracking down criminals hiding behind online profiles. The move follows investigations and convictions of some individuals involved in the unrest in which 350 were killed in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal in 2021. Police are still searching for the killers of the City of Johannesburg forensic investigator Benedict Sitole. 55-year-old Sitole was killed in an apparent drive-by shooting in downtown Johannesburg while on his way home last week Thursday. And the death toll from the runaway fire in Boston in KwaZulu-Natal Midlands has risen to 6. 3 volunteer firefighters died yesterday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
There is some protesting that's erupted on the Lenasia south side this morning. The Clip River Drive, or the Klipspruit Valley Road extension, I beg your pardon, the M10 is obstructed. It's the M10 where it becomes a sort of 558, that area south of Lenasia. If that's your route through, there will be some disruption this morning. Lenasia Drive also seems to be having an impact from that protesting. The N1 at Crossmere, that's fairly busy. On your way to Joburg as you come up through the plaza towards the services into the roadworks and the construction. Also the N3 at Van Buren, that left lane closure causing some early morning delays as you come up from Elands interchange, Jameson through to Galilee's, looking fairly busy this morning. Truck crash at Town Hill. All lanes are open currently, but at some point they'll probably have to recover that across the course of the day. So at this stage, from Howick and Hilton going into Pietermaritzburg, it's fine, but a little bit later that may not be the case. Cape Town, the Clarence Drive option between Gordons Bay and Royales remains closed to traffic. It will be the long way round via Solaris. In the meantime, I believe a reassessment due at some point today in terms of the viability of getting that road back and reopened. And the highways going into Cape Town fairly busy. Schools are open. Weather's a little bit on the improved side this morning after all the rain, but the volumes are certainly there. N1 Belleville through to Sable Road. N2 inbound from the airport through towards Mowbray Main, already very busy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intaling Lechele, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Stephen. I'm well. I hope you're good.
All good, thanks. How are the markets this morning?
Now, before we get into today's markets action, let's just recap on last week Friday's close. In Wall Street, we saw markets end in a positive territory with the Dow Jones Industrial Average soaring on the back of gains in Home Depot and Caterpillar as investors started to embrace some stocks outside of the tech bull market leaders. Over the past few days, we've started seeing a rotation in stocks as traders eye other industries. Moving over to Asia now, stocks in that region mostly in negative territory as traders digest downbeat GDP data. The Chinese economy grew 4.7% in the second quarter, missing expectations of a 5.1% expansion forecast by Reuters and lower than the 5.3% seen in the first quarter. Bringing it to the local front now, the JSE ended last week on an upbeat note, nearing a fresh record high. This was mainly on the back of the positive global sentiment that filtered through to local equities. The all share gained 0.73%, driven by industrials up 1.4%. The rand continuing its winning streak, breaking under the 18 rand mark, trading at 17.97 to the dollar.
And then US earnings season kicking off.
It's going to be a busy few weeks for markets, Stephen, with traders shifting their focus to company earnings. Interestingly, FactSet had forecast an 8.8% jump in US earnings for the second quarter. But when you strip out the top 10 most valuable companies, this being mostly tech firms, earnings growth is quite flat. Now, last Friday, the banking industry got earnings season started and the numbers were quite mixed, just highlighting what the macroeconomic picture looks like in the US, including high interest rates, a strong economy, and a resilient labor market. Zooming in on those numbers now, JP Morgan and Citibank delivered an increase in profits boosted by its investment banking units, but there was a higher cost recorded to account for bad loans in light of greater stress on lower income customers. Wells Fargo, in the meantime, posted a 0.5% decline in profits. This was mainly on the back of a slide in its net interest income, a measure of lending profitability. Now, despite all three banks topping analyst expectations, markets reacted negatively with all three counters closing in the red on Friday.
And then China's trade surplus hitting a record in June.
That's right, Stephen. Now, China had a record trade surplus of $99 billion last month. This comes as importers rushed to place orders before tariffs on Chinese goods increased. Now, the size of Beijing's trade surplus was far bigger than the $85 billion expected by the markets. Now, higher U.S. tariffs on Chinese-made electrical vehicles and other high-tech products comes into force on the 1st of August, while higher EU import duties on Chinese EVs came into force earlier this month. Now, when looking at its other trade data, exports jumped over 10% and imports fell 0.6% in June. And analysts say the numbers highlight the reliance of China's economy on access to the markets in the West. Now, this puts pressure on Beijing to do more to stimulate its domestic demand. Booming exports were boosted by auto and semiconductor exports to industries that are under threat as they face higher tariffs. Analysts, in the meantime, are warning of a slowdown in exports when those tariffs are fully in effect.
Ntaling Lechela, thanks so much. Back, of course, in an hour.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Ras Advocate Sipho Mantula's at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs at UNISA. Sipho, good morning.
All right,
the Rwandan elections, obviously Paul Kagame is going to win. The only question is, where in the 90s will he get?
Stephen, when you look at these elections, they are very key for Rwanda as they are deciding. You can say they started yesterday with the diaspora vote, including South Africa, Cape Town, Durban, Tshwane, Pretoria. There have been elections yesterday of special vote in Rwanda. But when you look at the numbers, you are looking at 9.7 million Rwandese who are eligible to vote today, Stephen, and to choose their president and member of parliament, almost 80 members of parliament, but they are going for 53 today and tomorrow as well. So Rwanda is important for these elections, SG. And when you look at the key issues, the driving factors of the Rwanda elections in 2024 are still the issues of the rising inflation in Africa, the cost of living getting too high in many African countries. One cannot go on the two candidates, SG, because they are very young to the current president, Philip Mpaimana at the age of 54, Frank Habineza at the age of 47. We'll still report about this, Stephen, because Rwanda decides today.
And then in Tunisia, a judge bars a potential presidential candidate from appearing in the media or traveling around the country.
Stephen, you know that Tunisia decides also in October, but it seems President Kais Saied, the professor, is clamping down as well on some of the presidential candidates and using the judiciary that he has never trusted. At some point, he has even dissolved parliament. Prof. Kais Saied. So the Tunisian politics are getting heated as we see that candidates are also being suppressed in terms of their campaigns.
And then in Kenya, the police chief, Japheth Koome, his deputy, resigned after some bodies were found in sacks.
Stephen, this is very sad. Remember last week we spoke about the cabinet removal. Now you see the highest in the law enforcement of Nairobi in Kenya that they handed their resignation to President Ruto, Inspector General Koome, as well as his deputy, Douglas Kanja, who will now be acting. But as you look at them, Stephen, they have been resigning because there was a body bags that were recovered in one of the quarries in the informal settlement in Kenya. It might be in Kibera, Stephen. I'm not sure because one of your famous informal settlement there, Kibera, that's where you have more than 1 million Kenyan citizens who are staying there. And that's how, when you look at the challenges that are facing Kenya, is that Ruto is now also have to deal with the law enforcement civil. Who will be the national commissioner? Who will be the inspector general to deal with the policing in Kenya? As he has taken his police to Haiti, by the way.
And then in Nigeria, the president Tinubu congratulating the literary colossus Wole Soyinka on his birthday.
Stephen, Wole Soyinka was turning 90 years. The novelist, the poet, the actor, the singer, the composer, documentarian. Wole Soyinka was turning 90 years now. The Jagaban, Bola Tinubu, renaming the National Theatre in Angum, in Surulere, by renaming it the Wole Soyinka Center for Culture and the Creative Arts. A very good move coming from President Tinubu, Stephen, by acknowledging the role of Wole Soyinka, who we know that in 1986 he got the Nobel Prize for Literature, the first African to win the prize in that category.
And then in our archives, all the way back to the 15th of July, 1856.
It's a serious memory lane, Stephen. 168 years ago, the then Natal colony, now known as KwaZulu-Natal, was formally separated from the Cape colony by means of the Charter of Natal. Very interesting that also there was a place called the Chifaku No Man's Land between Mzimkulu and Itamavuyana River, Stephen. That's where when you look at the history of the colonies during those years between Britain controlling some of the colonies in South Africa, whether Cape, Natal, Free State. That's how it shows what happened today in our archive 160 years ago, Stephen. Asante sana SG, as facilitating the conversation, SAFM, observing International Nelson Mandela Month.
Harass Advocate Sipho Mantulip, thank you. Do appreciate it. Back, of course, tomorrow. More news from our continent through the day here on SAFM.
There's listening to the news. Then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our transactional banking solutions. Accessing our transactional banking solutions means you'll get a dedicated manager from the country's best relationship bank. When you have a dedicated relationship manager, their business is to understand your business and its financial needs. By understanding all your needs, they can connect you with the right sector and product experts across 15 key African markets. You see, there's transactional banking, then there's transactional banking with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Calls coming through. Lots to talk about. The VBS story, I think, going to move. What's happening in the United States also. Voice notes coming through on 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Stephen. The first time this VBS scandal broke out, in reaction of receiving the 16 million, the EFF had said Scamega had rendered a service to VBS Bank. And that was in 2017, 2018. And now the story changes to the 16 million was a donation. Something is not adding up, Stephen. It's Kanye and Katlehon. Thanks.
Kanye, yes, I'd forgotten that. I think that is the case. We'll check. Other voice notes this morning.
Good morning, Stephen. It's Vugane from Durban. I want to comment on the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I think it should be condemned by everyone. It does not belong to a democracy. However, I think that what will fuel the conspiracy theories is the fact that Donald Trump was allowed by the Secret Service to raise his head and then raise his hand up in the air. How did he and the Secret Service know that the danger was gone within seconds of it happening? That's what is going to fuel conspiracy theories. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. I mean, there can be no doubt. I think that it will. And I think this is going to be the kind of thing, if you look at what happened, and there's a sort of something that happens in American culture around this, the JFK assassination, people still talk about that. You were there, SAFM, 6:45.
Yeah, we can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow. It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers.
Crown Chasers is back.
Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, calls coming in this morning, and of course there's a lot to sort of look at with all of these issues at the moment. Part of it is around VBS, part of it is other issues as well this morning. Errol on the line from Johannesburg. Errol, hi.
From Durban.
I was going to say, sorry, yes, Errol, go for it.
Okay, Stephen, you're not leaving SABC, are you?
I am, Errol, I'm afraid. This is my second last week.
We will miss you.
Thank you.
Anyway, you know, this guy Matsotsi, who was sentenced to 15 years.
Yeah, Jafil Matsotsi, yeah.
Yeah, listen, could he be out after 5 years, serving of good behaviour and all that?
I've wondered about that, and if maybe that's sort of part of a deal, and if it is, that might well be a tax. So I don't know, Errol. I've thought maybe there might be something in that. But from what I know, it's 15 years at the moment. I haven't gone through the entire sentence in enough detail to answer your question. But I think you ask an important question here.
Yeah, they say South Africa is a violent country, but I reckon America's 10 times worse. Look at all the mass shootings they've had there, and presidents that have been taken down. And Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This brings back all of those memories. Errol, thank you. 1968, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy. There were others. It was a very violent year in the United States politically. Errol in Durban, thank you. Activist in Polokwane. Hi, good morning. VBS.
Yes, how are you, John?
Mine
is very simple this morning. It's just a prayer to law enforcement agencies, in particular the correctional services, to make sure that they protect Chifiwa Matodzi, because through Chifiwa Matodzi, we'll be able to bury this issue of VBS, because that is the key witness to very serious criminal activities which involve very serious, powerful politicians in Limpopo and nationally as well. So the life of that particular person is in danger more than the life of the president as we speak now. So I'm praying to the correctional services to make sure that they protect his life 24/7 until he gives testimony, and we see the big heads going to prison as well.
Sure, activist. All right, yeah, okay, interesting. The testimony will also be contested, I'm sure. There'll be other versions put to this. Bramoro and Mangong. Bramoro, hi. Home Affairs, a new minister.
Yes, please. How are you?
I'm well, Bramoro. Go for it.
I'm good. Please, have you had interview with Dr. Aaron Schreiber? Have you had a discussion with him on your show?
No, I haven't. Not since he was appointed. We had spoken to him before, but about other issues, yeah.
Okay, can you please have him before you leave the CFM? We would like to pose a question to him that the backlog of visas that has been pending for the past 4, 5, 8 years, would it not be appropriate if Home Affairs decide to rather give blanket approval of all those permits that have been pending? And then from probably next year, 2025, they will take a critical look at every application that comes in. Because like Bramoro, for example, I might have applied my permit 4 years ago, and my passport by now with Home Affairs has expired.
Yeah.
But although I have a new passport, I cannot go to Home Affairs and give it to them. You understand? So now Home Affairs might use that opportunity to decline me from issuing me the permit. Meanwhile, the problem is not coming from my end, all because of the backlog that Home Affairs has been experiencing. So our advice to the new minister would be grant amnesty, which is approve all the existing permits on the system. Approve all. Then from today or from next year, you have the new idea that, every fresh application that comes in, you're going to scrutinize it, and that will come out within a maximum of 1 month.
Yeah.
They should be able to work on that.
All right.
One territory we can use to improve tourism in the country. Still, we cannot grow South Africa without foreigners, although foreigners make South Africa better.
Okay,
there
Bramoro,
are
yes.
No,
sure. Bramoro, we've heard you. Thank you. Look, I know that this idea comes up from time to time, and you do get amnesties. It does happen. It happens in other countries too. I don't know if it'll happen here. 10 minutes to 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. If you're driving out of Montana in Pretoria, a vehicle on fire on Sefaka Makato at the N1. So that's quite a heavy backlog of traffic as you leave that Montana area. The N4 coming in from Watermeer, very slow to the N1. And the queues continue onto Pretoria Street going down into Hatfield. If you're on the N4 highway, wanting to get through to Hatfield, it's all pretty heavily backed up. The N1 looking really busy as well from Brockfontein all the way down to New Road this morning. Not many gaps in that N1 traffic. It is fully loaded already. N3 coming out of Alberton from Voortrekker Road up through to the left lane closure at Van Buren's, fairly heavy on your way to Galilee's, and there's some delays on the N1 at least at Crossmere. That gets busy this time of morning these days with the roadworks that are in place there just north of the Crossmere toll. Crossing to the Durban side, the Komashu Highway coming from Dust Road down towards the N2 highway, that is fairly busy. Crash at the top of Fields Hill on the M13, just holding up traffic out of Kloof this morning towards Pinetown, and Cape Town reasonably busy on the highways. The N1 backlogging from Durban Road at Belleville all the way through to the Coburg interchange now. The N2 inbound from the airport busy through as far as Mowbray Main Road. Clarence Drive, R44 around the coast between Gordons Bay and Royales remains closed. Baines Kloof Pass going in and out of Cirrus remains closed. That's the Wellington Road. And also Mitchell's Pass, just south of Cirrus, is open. That's the R46 is open, but there are some stop-go controls following some rockfalls and some flood damage from last week. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
Hi, my name is Jackie. I'm 35 years old from Pretoria and I only pay 691 Rand for my 2022 Ford EcoSport with OUTsurance Comprehensive.
What makes the best car insurer? The best price with awesome service, right? SMS out to 30754 to see if you can pay less, experience awesome service, and see for yourself why OUTsurance was voted best car insurer by many publications and best car, home, and business insurer at the News 24 Awards for the past 2 years.
I am not surprised they won all the awards because in my experience they are excellent.
They walk the talk. They actually do what they say and they follow through on their promises.
SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself. Experience awesome. Go to outsurance.co.za for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Nick is hiding a dark secret. For 20 years, everything has been going according to plan. Until now. He has the perfect wife, Maya, a smart, ambitious defense lawyer who is on the verge of becoming the first black director of public prosecutions. Amidst the biggest case of her career and having her life under intense scrutiny, Maya learns of Nick's dark secret and how she was one of Nick's targets 20 years ago. The veil of secrecy will fall. Nothing stays hidden forever. Betrayal, secrets, suspense. Oh, the drama. This is Undercover, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
S3. First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
7 minutes to 7. Good morning. The High Court in Makhanda dismissing an application by the SAPS, the National Police Commissioner, and the Eastern Cape Transport Department to appeal a ruling ordering them to draw up a plan to protect drivers and passengers on Intercape buses. This started many years ago. Intercapes asked the police to investigate what they say are taxi groups who are using violence against their buses. At one point, a government official told Intercape to simply make payments to the taxi industry. Governments refused to act against those involved in this violence. The CEO at Intercape is Johan Ferreira. Johan, good morning to you. So again, you've won a legal victory against government. Do you believe that the police will now investigate this violence?
Well, they have to at some point in time. I think they're running out of options, and I think they've come to the end of the road. So this particular appeal that they lost was actually to formulate the plan. The the one regarding the arrest, they appealed, applied for leave to appeal. We agreed to it under certain circumstances, and that was a tactical move on our side. And we wait for that trial to happen. But nevertheless, this one is very important. They now have to file that safety plan, which they've tried to not do. I think we're going to be in front of the Police Portfolio Committee in Parliament on the 21st of August. So I think then they have to start to explain to Parliament why they are reluctant to file this plan and to actually take action.
Do you have evidence that the taxi industry is involved in this, that this is part of a campaign? And this is key to the issue because the police have said, no, this is isolated incidents. You have a very different view.
No. I have a 100% different view because I have the evidence. I was in the meetings, and all of that's been given to the police. So I think the police are, if that's what they say, they are 100% in cahoots with the taxis because they will not recognize the evidence in front of them. So the police can't say that. And the other thing also what they can't say and what they've been saying to the public and saying to the court is that they don't have the resources to escort every bus in South Africa. And that was never the idea. This is limited to 5 towns in the Eastern Cape, and it's limited to certain sections of the road in the Eastern Cape where these attacks happen. And it's also limited to when we would call the police and say, we have information that there's going to be attacks on the buses, please escort the bus, or please be at the bus stop. So, I think it's just smoke and mirrors on the side of the police, and they're doing everything in their power not to cooperate.
There's a new Minister of Police, Senator Mkhunu, and a new Transport Minister, Barbara Creasy. Could that change things?
Well, I hope it will change things, because I can tell you that Vakile Mbalula and Becky Cele has got a blood trail and blood on their hands, and they left their department in shambles. I can't think for 1 minute that Becky Cele looked back on his tenure with pride, because he managed to raise the murder number in South Africa to about, I think it's 27,000 a year. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Johan Ferreira, thank you, CEO at Intercape.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
3 minutes to 7. Over the last week, we've seen all kinds of extreme weather. The huge flooding in the Western Cape, thousands of people forced from their homes, a tornado in KwaZulu-Natal, wildfires in KZN at the moment that claimed the lives of 13 people. Professor Kaitano Dube is a human geographer who also researches tourism. Professor Dube, good morning. We have extreme weather almost regularly now. That must have an impact on where people want to go on holiday. It must affect the tourism market big time.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners. Indeed, I think the recent events that we have seen, the extreme weather events that we have seen, particularly in parts of our country, have got a detrimental effect on our tourism product, as it were. Needless to say, there's a lot of loss of revenue and income that is actually expected to come from the tourism product at this particular time of the year, with the ripple effect across the economy, as we know. You can imagine if you were a tourist that wants to visit South Africa and you're coming all the way, say, from USA or Germany. You have got, when tourists come and visit, they've got a strict timeline that they want to do and partake in certain activities. We had almost more than a week of closed up space, for example, in the Western Cape. So it means that if a tourist had come in, they were not able to participate in various tourism activities that they would have planned. And this has been a trend, I think, in the past 10 years, we have seen an increase in the damage and loss that is inflicted on the tourism product. And that is a concern for jobs and also livelihoods that are dependent on our tourism product.
And very quickly, Professor, travel involves burning fossil fuel. Could we find there's a movement against travel for pleasure?
Indeed, there is flight shame, particularly a strong movement that is in the European market. But if you also look at the amount of aviation traffic that is in the southern part of the continent, even in Africa, it is particularly low. Not to say that we don't need to do something. There is definitely need for the tourism industry to cut its carbon emissions, and we have seen a targeted impact, particularly by the tourism sector, to reduce their carbon emissions and going green in most enterprises. You can look at the movement that has been particularly in sandparks, where they are putting in solar so as to reduce the carbon emissions that actually emanate from the tourism industry. And also, particularly if you look at some of the major hotels, they also have been reporting that they are going green in a significant manner to address the carbon emissions from the tourism industry. But what is left, I think, particularly is our aviation sector. I think there is need for us to invest in sustainable aviation fuels, which is a must.
Professor Kaitano Dube, thank you. Human geographer who looks at tourism as well. You were with SAFM leading the conversation, 7 o'clock.
In our top stories, police to launch a social media monitoring unit and KwaZulu-Natal wildfire death toll rises. Good morning. The South African Police Service is launching a specialized social media monitoring unit aimed at tracking down criminals hiding behind online profiles. The move follows investigations and convictions of some individuals involved in the unrest in which 350 people were killed in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal in 2021. Police said the incident revealed the need for closer scrutiny of online activities. National Police spokesperson Athlanda Mate.
Already there is a capability that is there to monitor the media space and to pick up on incidents. And the number of incidents that we are picking up on through social media is assisting us. So we have various capabilities within the SAPS that are already dealing with social media, the social media space, and ensuring that we monitor it. But obviously, if such a team is put in place, it's to enhance and improve our capabilities.
Police are still searching for the killers of the City of Johannesburg forensic investigator Benedict Sitole. 55-year-old Sitole was killed in an apparent drive-by shooting in downtown Johannesburg while on his way home last week Thursday. It's believed the former Hawks detective was investigating sensitive corruption-related cases. Lerato Makola reports.
Family and friends of slain Joburg City forensic investigator Zenzele Benedict Sitole are still struggling to come to terms with his death. They've asked for privacy during this difficult time. Following Sitole's alleged killing last week, the Joburg Metro warned political parties and the media not to spread misinformation that could lead and misdirect the investigations into the case.
The death toll from a runaway fire in Boston in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands has risen to 6. 3 volunteer firefighters died yesterday, 3 others died in hospital. This takes the number of people who've died from wildfires in the province in the last week to 13. 2 firefighters were injured and are still in hospital. Meanwhile, the Umgeni local municipality says poachers are suspected to have started the fire. Municipal Mayor Chris Pappas says urged residents to be vigilant as windy and dry conditions persist.
There is a really strong fire danger in place at the moment. So we urge people not to start fires and to be cautious out there. When you do see smoke, please report it immediately so that we can try and attend to it as quick as possible. It is fire season, but it is a particularly bad one. And across KwaZulu-Natal, we've seen hundreds of hectares of land lost so far.
The elimination of structural and financial barriers to mobilize capital for South Africa's just energy transition is expected to come under the spotlight at the 3-day Climate Resilience Symposium at the CSIR Convention Centre in Pretoria today. National Treasury, the Presidential Climate Commission and the World Bank will host the symposium, at which President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to deliver the keynote address. National Treasury's Georgina Ryan.
We are very excited because this is an opportunity to discuss the importance of climate change issues. We have a number of objectives that we also want to achieve over these 3 days. We are highlighting the role of the National Treasury in climate change, the instruments that we have, such as the carbon tax, disaster risk financing, and how we integrate climate objectives into the macro fiscal and financing policy. We also recognize that climate change needs to be tackled collectively with our stakeholders. So we speak a lot about improving government coordination and also mainstreaming climate change into governmental fiscal systems.
And finally, the FBI says the man suspected of opening fire on former U.S. President Donald Trump acted alone and used a legally purchased rifle. The firearm was recovered after 20-year-old Thomas Crooks was shot dead at the scene. The BBC's Nadia Tawfik has the details.
The FBI is still trying to determine a potential motive. They believe the suspect acted alone and said he had no history of mental health issues. Nor has the agency seen anything threatening in the 20-year-old's social media, though they caution it is very early on in the investigation. Authorities are still trying to get access to his phone, which, along with a rudimentary explosive device found in his car and the rifle he was carrying, have been sent to the FBI's forensics lab in Quantico, Virginia.
Recapping the top story, the South African Police Service is launching a specialized social media monitoring unit aimed at tracking down criminals hiding behind online profiles. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, soccer action. Lionel Messi's Argentina winning the Copa America title in extra time. And more soccer as Spain triumph over England in Euro 2024, the final. All this and more just before 7:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Here's one to try and avoid. Going into Pretoria off the N4 this morning. There's been a fatal collision scene. So it's the N4 where it extends into Pretoria Street, just down by the McDonald's. It's sort of where the N4 actually becomes Pretoria Street in Hatfield. That is a very heavy queue. It's likely to be for some time. Traffic is parking back through the M1, back through Watermeyer and back towards the Rousseau Street exit. So if you're coming in from Mamelodi or joining the highway from Simon Vermoot, you might want to avoid that. Take some alternative routes to the north or the South Pretoria Road or Linwood Road would come in as option. Staying in the capital, there's a vehicle on fire on Sefaka Makato at the N1. So leaving Montana, that's all fairly heavily back this morning as well. The N3 out of Alberton, heavy up towards Van Buren on your way very slowly this morning from the cement factory up through towards the Galulis interchange area. Durban's Kwamashu Highway, jam-packed coming from Kwamashu down towards the N2 highway. And Cape Town, if you're in from the south this morning, busy highways. The M5 queuing from Ottery all the way through to Maitland and the Kuiper interchange. That route is full of traffic. And the N3 is backlogging from Constantia Main Road right up and down Wynberg Hill into the Bishop's Court Paradise Road junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 7, good morning. You're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. In a moment, a declaration of a state of disaster in the Western Cape. We'll speak to the Premier. We'll speak to the investigative journalist Polly van Wyk about the VBS saga. And then to respond from the EFF to this affidavit that's been lodged by the former chair of VBS, we'll hear from Dalia Mpofu, of course, the advocate, but also a former national chairman of the Economic Freedom Fighters. Good morning.
Imagine if you could save time like you save money. A second here, a minute there. Type a little faster, walk a little faster. Or you could stop scrolling on the internet. Just think of all the hours you'll save. Now what if you could take all that time and invest it? Watch it grow. Until eventually, one day, you'd have so much time that you wouldn't know what to do with it all. But unfortunately, time doesn't work like that. It can't be stored or banked. And unlike money, you can't make it back. That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do whatever you want to do, even if it is scrolling on the internet. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
What is Ushuni, you say? Ushuni has a musical gift and can transform a song. Ushuni can fuse folk music with a popular urban beat or tune. Ushuni can take us on a beautiful musical journey. Ushuni way to Gelo. Join us in unearthing South Africa's next folk music star. 40 talented contestants from around South Africa competing for the ultimate grand prize of 500,000 Rand cash and a recording deal. Angeke basikhone with Ushuni Womhlaba, starting 7 July, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on SABC1.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
10 after 7, good morning. A state of disaster now being formally declared in the Western Cape after almost 2 weeks of the most intense rain in probably the last 20 years has caused a huge amount of damage. You'll have seen the pictures of cars almost completely submerged by the rain, which simply went on and on. Big issues, of course, in informal settlements. The Premier of the Western Cape is Alan Winde. Mr. Premier, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Almost 2 weeks of really intense rain. You now have a clearer picture of the situation. How bad is it?
Well, every day I get the numbers and it just seems to be climbing. So 158,000 citizens affected, 47,000 structures, homes, damaged dwellings from informal to formal. And as you said this morning, we still have over 70 roads closed. although the major passes are generally open. And we try to get the roads open as quickly as possible, and still Clarence Drive, Chapman's Peak closed. But the real issue is in the rural areas like in Citrusdal being blocked off, and some of the smaller towns and villages blocked off. And so there we rely on rubber ducks getting food and supplies over the rivers or the flooded areas, or helicopters. And so that's been the last few days, is getting emergency supplies to people. And also I must just say once again, the emergency personnel, amazing job, and the NGOs and citizens who just step up to help. But it's been a major week.
Sure. Do you have all the resources you need to deal with this, to make sure just everyone, for example, has enough food and supplies?
So, I mean, the answer is yes, but that's why we ask for the declaration of a disaster, and we welcome that. This morning at 9 o'clock, the National Minister will welcome him at the Disaster Management Centre, so we give him an update. He'll also have some site visits, because although we will be declaring it a provincial disaster, we need national government support in that. And the disaster declaration really helps us with those resources, although we don't, I don't wait for the declaration before we will release funding or make decisions on helicopters or whatever. We make those decisions, and we then, help us clear it from, financial audit findings, etc. later down the year through the declarations of disaster, so we can move funding to where it needs to be moved to, and resources. And I think we've built up a track record over years of, the ability of disaster management to pull the teams together and, just get it done. And that's what we really focus on. But it's still going to be around for quite a few more days, because a lot of places are still flooded. Rivers are still flowing very, very fast. Snow is now melting, which keeps that flow going. And, of course, later in the week, we're going to get more rain, although it doesn't look like it's going to be severe like we've had in the last week.
Mr. Premier, thank you very much indeed. The Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Winde, more on that story, as he said, from around 9 o'clock this morning, 13 after 7.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
More and more details now emerging from an affidavit filed by the former chair of the VBS Bank, Chifuyo Matodzi, about how he stole money from the bank and gave some of that money to other people. This week, Matodzi will start a 15-year jail term for his role in the bank's collapse. And from what I can see, and this is just from context, it would appear that maybe this affidavit is going to be used to prosecute other people. In his documents, Matodzi says in 2017 he met the leaders of the EFF, Julius Malema and Floyd Javambu, and told them he would give them money if they stopped attacking the bank over the fact it had lent money to then-President Jacob Zuma to pay off his debt at Nkanda. We'll hear from the EFF in a moment. First, the investigative journalist, Scorpio's Polly van Wyk at Daily Maverick. She first reported on this 5 years ago, and she joins us now. Polly, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Almost all of this information was probably already in the public domain. Now it's on affidavit directly from the person himself. What does Matodzi say in his affidavit about this meeting with the EFF leaders?
Yes, so a lot of what is in there has been in some of my reports. So like Ernest Nasani, Paul Magula, the ANC people that did receive money, but also how the EFF leaders spent their money. What is new here and what's in the affidavit is the reason why the EFF leaders received the money. And that's important. Matodzi uses the word donations, but we should not see donations here as how we understand it as a legitimate donation gifted to the EFF, because in that same sentence he uses the word gratification. Now that word has a legal meaning in our POCA and PRECA, which is our anti-corruption legislation in South Africa. And that means Matodzi in essence says, I gave a donation or a money to the EFF leaders in gratification, which means it was a bribe, for them to keep quiet about the VBS loan given to Jacob Zuma's Nkandla homestead. And that is crucial information. And the second thing that we did not know, which I couldn't prove, we thought it might have been, but we couldn't prove it, was that the Shivambu brothers, after the VBS situation blew up and everyone realized here comes trouble, the Shivambu brothers faked a contract with Vele and VBS to make it seem as if they had consulting fees from VBS and Vele, and then fake backdated the signatures and the document. So, two things. It was a bribe for the EFF to not speak about Nkandla, and there was a crime committed again when the document was backdated, and it seemed as if it was not a donation, as they try to tell us now, but that it was consulting fees.
What happened to the money after that? Was it used by the EFF or was it used by Malema and Shivambu?
We are talking about 16.1 million in total. Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu got away with most of it. They spent it on homes, cars, their kids, food, luxury lifestyles, clothes, and about 1.3 to 1.7 million went to the EFF itself.
Polly van Wyk, thank you very much indeed. An investigative journalist at Scorpio with Daily Maverick. You were with SFM 17 minutes after 7. And we're listening to that is the former chair of the Economic Freedom Fighters. He's also an advocate, Dali Mpofu. Dali, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Was this a bribe?
No. That is, Polly van Wyk and the people who are trying to embellish the affidavit of Matotsi are all guilty of the same thing which she has just done now. Matotsi's affidavit says three things. The first one is that he went to speak to leaders of the EFF because of the criticism of what we now call the Zuma loan, right? Now, that's not a crime. All companies do that. If I criticize a company in a public platform, they have a right to say, let's meet and I'll explain that this is not what you're saying. We've had meetings with all sorts of people for that, with SANEF, with all sorts of organizations. So that's not a crime. That's the first thing. He then says, and this is where she is obfuscating the matter, he says that he offered, because he says there are the constituencies coincide between the EFF and the VBS target market, as he calls it. He offered a donation, right? He doesn't say what Paul just said. He said, no, you must keep quiet about Nkandla and I will give you a donation. That's not true. That's her editorial adding onto it. So he says he made that. Two, that's not a crime as well, by the way. All companies give donations to political parties. Naspers, which owns City Press and News 24, gives a donation to the ANC and to the DA. Is it a good thing? I don't think so. Is it a crime? No.
Okay,
it's not a crime.
But Dali,
it's not a crime to give a donation to a political party. All political parties rely on donations.
But what you're asking us to accept then is that one organisation A was attacking organisation B. Okay, right. So the EFF was attacking VBS. There was a meeting. In the meeting, the organisation which has been attacked, VBS, now offers to give the EFF money. I mean, that seems quite strange to me.
No, Stephen, no. You're also obfuscating. I'm saying I attack SAFM, all right? Then I have a meeting with SAFM to explain that, no, you misunderstood Stephen. He was not meaning this, that, and the other. In that meeting, as a separate discussion, you then say, well, SAFM also offers adverts and this and that and the other. And then or I'll give you a donation. You are not allowed, you and Polly, to then link the two things because it's not linked in the affidavit. Unless if you want your own affidavit, that's fine. But in the Matotsi affidavit, there is no link between those two things.
Okay.
That's the point. Yeah.
So there was no quid pro quo, is what you're saying. There's no something for something.
That's exactly the point. There's no quid pro quo. The quid pro quo is created by the Polly van Wyks of this world and other people. It's not there in the affidavit. Okay. So all I'm saying is that don't put words into Matotsi. If you want to interpret it that way, fine, you're free. I'll interpret it the way I interpret it. But do not tell your viewers that it comes from the affidavit as she has done, because that's a lie.
Okay. Has this ever happened before, where the EFF attacked or criticised an organisation or a bank or a company, and then received money from that organisation after attacking them?
No, but what has happened is the following, because I can tell you because it happened with me. And it happens all the time. If we had a tiff, you might remember, with Absa Bank, and we said we're going to go and march there. They sent somebody. It was reported in the Sunday Times that I had met with Maria Ramos. That was not true. She sent someone from her office, and they explained whatever the tiff was about. And it happens all the time. As I say, when we, for example, when we said we don't want to deal with ANN7, SANEF came to us and said, no, we want to explain this and the other. And either the explanation is good or it's bad. If it's good, then that's the end of it. If it's bad, then we obviously will continue. The fact that and it has happened even with Standard Bank, by the way. We met Standard Bank for to do loans for our building and so on, and then they later said, "Oh, we also have offers. We give donations to political parties," and we said, "No, thanks. We don't take donations from white monopoly capital."
Okay, so if this was
happens all the time.
Okay, so this was a donation. If it was a donation, why did it go through this account that was created for Skameka projects? Now, this company, as I understand it, was controlled by Floyd Shivambu's brother, Brian Shivambu. Why does the EFF not just open an account in its own name? Matotsi wanted it at VBS, fine. The EFF goes to VBS, opens an account, calls it Economic Freedom Fighters Donation Account, and accept the money. Why receive the money through an account controlled by the deputy leader's brother in a different name that's got nothing to do with the EFF at all?
Right. Now, that's a separate question altogether. Matotsi says he wanted to... the donation he was offering was to the EFF, right? Now, and that also addresses the things that Polly van Wyk was saying about the money going to people's individual pockets, which again is not in the affidavit. Now let's come to the use of a vehicle or an SPV or whatever. It doesn't matter which vehicle is used to for a donation. That's not a crime either, by the way, Stephen. Whether if you the SABC is giving a donation, if it says, well, we'll use the SAFM account or this or that other entity, PTY Ltd, just like the donations that were given in the CR17, that 1 billion rand, all that money was done through SPVs. Why it's done through SPVs, you can ask the people who are doing it. But is it a crime? No, it's not a crime that the money should come through a particular entity.
Okay, so these are the things that we know, right? The money at VBS was stolen by Matotsi. Okay, we know that. He's admitted that. The EFF received...
Well, which money?
Well, we know that he looted we know that he played a key role in looting.
So what, Stephen? What does that got to do with the donation?
Okay, let's go back a little bit then. We know the money was the result of a crime. Now, no matter whether the EFF committed a crime one way or another, whatever the outcome of any process that goes forward, the EFF maybe unknowingly received money that was the proceeds of a crime. Is the EFF going to pay it back? Have you paid it back already?
No. You can't, Stephen, reason like that. I mean, that's just completely ridiculous. So if the DA has accepted that it received money from the Guptas, for example,
and they paid it back.
No, I'm just bear with me, please. Yeah, the DA says it receives money from the Guptas. Now, how will it know if that money is the money that the Guptas took from Eskom, or whether it's the money that Guptas legitimately earned from their investments, or is the money that
but they paid it back.
Let me put it this way: how do you know whether the money was part of an investment, as it came from something called Vele Investments, or whether it came from the deposit takers.
What I'm asking is, now we know that the money was the proceeds of some crime.
No, how do we know it? Who's we?
So you're keeping the money then?
No, but which money are you talking about? I'm not even saying that Matsotsi. Remember, Matsotsi's affidavit is an affidavit of a convicted criminal. So it must be treated with caution in its first place. But I'm saying, even if you take it at face value, it doesn't say the things that you and Paulie says that it says. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying pay the money back, which money.
Okay.
I'm saying Matsotsi's version, as you interpret it. And that is the problem, Stephen, and you'll get this even from your callers. People must read the affidavit before they comment, and B, they must tell us which of these things that are said there amounts to a crime. Should you have done it through this account or that account? Well, we might have views about that, but crime is a completely different matter. And I've given you the example of the Gupta and the DA. Was it a crime to take that money? No, it wasn't. Did they pay it back because it was a crime? No. If it was a crime, actually, even if they paid it back, they would still go to jail. So that's irrelevant.
Okay.
The point is, was it a crime to take the money from the Guptas by the DA? No. Was it a crime to take donation from Naspers who might be exploiting their workers or whatever? No, it's not a crime. It might be not a nice thing to do, but it's not a crime.
So, Dali, what do you want us to accept then, just so that I understand your version, is we know there was that VBS was being attacked by the EFF.
Yes.
The EFF leaders had a meeting with them. In that one meeting, two things happened. One is VBS convinced the EFF that actually they were doing the right thing. And secondly, you say completely separately, the Matsotsi decided to give EFF 16 million rand. And EFF decided, hold on, I'm not finished yet. You can attack it in a moment.
16 million. No, that's another, but you're making a wrong fact. Matsotsi says 5 million. Where do you get the 16 million?
Okay, well, 5 million then, fine. And then all of this, EFF decided to accept through an account, not directly, but through an account held by the deputy leader's brother. So you want us to accept all of those things. That's your version. I'm just trying to get your version on the record. That's your version.
It's Matsotsi's version, Stephen, please. I'm saying what the affidavit that you are reading says exactly what you have just said. Don't say it's my version. What is your version apart from Matsotsi's version?
No, I don't have a version. I'm putting questions to you. That's my job.
Yeah. Well, I'm answering your questions. Then don't pad the affidavit and add things that are not there, as Paulie van Wyk has just done. That's all I'm asking for. We're not saying people must not ask questions, but just be fair. Ask the same questions. The same people, you guys who would not believe Arthur Fraser's affidavit, to believe an affidavit of a convicted fraudster and take it and even add to it your own editorial stuff.
Advocate Dali Mpofu, thank you. Speaking as former chair of the Economic Freedom Fighters, 29 minutes after 7.
What do you want from an insurer? Affordable premiums and awesome service when you claim, right? Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
My name is Mpo. I'm 42 years old from Cape Town. I pay $495 per month for my Ford Figo 2014 with OUTsurance Essential Cover.
SMS out to 30754 and see if you can save. But you also want to know your claim is going to be settled without any issues. Every year, the Ombudsman for Short-Term Insurance releases a report showing how the country's insurers did. And when it came to claims, of all the major insurers, OUTsurance has had the fewest complaints referred by clients to the Ombudsman for the past decade. Now that's awesome claim service.
I'm not surprised OUTsurance had such few complaints because in my experience with OUTsurance, everything has been amazing.
Real savings, really happy clients. Go to outsurance.co.za right now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
When Freddie, a troubled woman, is nearly assaulted outside a nightclub, the toilet attendant steps in to help. Baba, a former child soldier, acts with swift, unstoppable brutality. She's entranced. The pair form an instant, intoxicating connection. Something dark within both of them quickly emerges. Soon, they set about exacting revenge on people from Freddy's past. Baba's skill for violence and Freddy's tinge of psychopathy prove a lethal combination. But they are not the only ones on the hunt. We hunt together, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 24th of July. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Argentina wins.
Yes, Messi and his team clinched the Copa with a thrilling extra time goal. Pure magic on the field. Spain clinching Euro 2024 with a thrilling 2-1 victory over England in Berlin. In the meantime, the Springboks have held on to their place as the world's number one ranked team after the drawn series with Ireland. We'll hear now from the champion at the Wimbledon singles title, Carlos Alcaraz.
It was a great match for me. Obviously, Novak didn't play at his best the first two sets. A lot of mistakes, so I made the most of that. It is a great feeling, even thinking about being French Open winner and Wimbledon champion the same year that the few players just done it before. So it's unbelievable.
And finally, cycling, Tadej Pogačar took a significant step towards reclaiming the Tour de France with a second straight stage win. That was yesterday. More sport, top of the hour.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. You were there, SAFM, leading the conversation just after 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, robbers have shot dead a police officer and wounded 4 other officers at a petrol station in Bizana in the Eastern Cape. The South African Police Service is launching a specialised social media monitoring unit aimed at tracking down criminals hiding behind online profiles. And the death toll from a runaway fire in Boston in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands has risen to 6. 3 volunteer firefighters died yesterday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just a reminder, the one to avoid going into Pretoria this morning is the N4 under Pretoria Street. It's a fatal collision just by the McDonald's store there. It's where the sort of N4 ends and the Pretoria Street section begins, but it is already pushing traffic heavily back through towards Rousseau Street territory. If you come in from Mamelodi or normally come off Simon Vermeulen, try and avoid that. Take Pretoria Street in through sort of the Gardens area or go south towards Linwood Road. That routing will be busy, but it'll get you through a lot quicker than the N4 will this morning. Also, a vehicle fire coming out of Montana on Sefako Makato at the N1. That's still very busy. A lot of congestion around Delmas, Solomon Mashangu, Boeing Road junction. That normally points to some traffic light problems. That's heavily backed up again this morning. And Joburg, the Mike 1 under pressure. You've got a crash at Caller Drive, which is extending a queue right back to Parktown, which is meeting into the sort of peak hour queues up towards that Parktown area from Boyson. So Gold Reef City right through effectively to Sandton is a route under pressure today. Durban, the M4 Southern Freeway, queuing up through Umbilu and Congella again. It's not so much roadworks on the M4, but it's the closure of Brook Street around China Mall. I've seen some pictures of that latest demolition. They've still got a couple of months to go there, so peak hour traffic just queues into the CBD because of that Brook Street closure. M7 into Pinetown stays busy this morning from Hunt Stepman over to St John's Avenue. And Cape Town, very slow all over. The N7's particularly bad from Goodwood through towards Bosmansdam Road. There's also a lot of congestion around the N7 4-tracker road, right in that big junction in the heart of Goodwood. Very slow. A lot of traffic around Mfuleni side, Old Fora Road, Spine Road, top of Khayelitsha, that's busy. And Marine Drive jam packing from Bayside Mall in Tableview all the way through to Racecourse Road at Milnerton. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intaling morning again. How are the markets?
Starting off in Asia, markets mostly in negative territory as traders on that end digest China's GDP print, growth expanding 4.7% in the second quarter, below expectations of 5.1%. Now, with that, we saw China's Shanghai index slightly up 0.03%, while the Japanese Nikkei takes the biggest knock, down 2.45%. Over in Wall Street, futures are in the green. Traders on that end keeping a close eye on developments playing out on the political front and eyeing earnings. Back at home, local equities ending last week on an upbeat note, with the local bourse nearing a record high. The all share ended Friday up 0.73%, boosted by big industrial heavyweights like Naspers and Prosus. On the currency front, the rand breaking under the 18 rand mark, currently trading at 17.97 to the dollar.
And then Capitec expecting to deliver double-digit profit growth.
That's right, Stephen. Now, Capitec expects to report higher earnings for the first half of its financial year. This is largely due to fewer bad debts and increased income from transactions, commissions, and other services. It's forecasting earnings growth of up to 35%. The group also increased its stake in international online consumer lending group, Avafin Holdings, and it said contributions from that unit will boost its income statement in this period. Capitec is the last of the big local banks to release a trading update. Earlier this month, Standard Bank forecast profit growth of up to 30%, mainly on the back of its upbeat performance of its rest of Africa portfolio. FirstRand expects earnings growth of up to 8%. The group highlighted issues at its UK unit weighing on earnings. In the meantime, Nedbank warned of muted growth, citing a sluggish local economy. The laggard of the sector, ABSA, warned of a decline in profit, citing high credit impairments and lower non-interest income.
And then AVI forecasting a jump in annual earnings.
Now, this comes as a surprise, Stephen, because a lot of consumer-facing companies have struggled to deliver strong profits due to the dire state of the local consumer. Now, AVI, owner of brands like Five Roses Teas and Baker's Biscuits, expects to record a full-year earnings increase of between 21 and 25%. This has been underpinned by strong revenue growth. The company also managed to increase selling prices, kept costs under control, improved production efficiency, and remained protected against market fluctuations, which led to better results. Now, on the surface, the numbers look good, but when you dig deeper, you realize that only 2 of its units performed well. Entice and Creamer, which houses its beverages brands. Snacksworks, in the meantime, underperformed with volumes across the biscuit and snacks portfolio ending lower. I&J also had a difficult year with increased competition and reduced demand in key abalone markets, weighing on selling prices and volumes. Lastly, its footwear and personal care brands took a knock on the back of constrained demand.
Intaleng Lechela, thanks very much indeed. Do appreciate Intaleng, of course, back tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SFM, 22 minutes to 8.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Well, plenty of cause, and I think largely a reaction to the conversation with Advocate Dalia Mpofu from the Economic Freedom Fighters. Which way do you go on these payments from VBS? Cassius and Mangaung, hi, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, everyone there, and SAFM listeners. How are you, Stephen?
I'm well, Cassius. Thank you. Go for it. What do you think?
Thank you. Okay. Stephen, we have to look at the playing field of politics in South Africa. You know, this VBS is giving me hope that things are going to change for better. Why I say this, these people have stolen this money. They have taken it. This Malema boy used to make noise about Zuma and calling him names. On the day when he went to Nkandla to drink tea with him, I suspected there is something. I suspected there's something very big. All these things going to play out. They keep on, you know, when they are in parliament, they talk about land. They will say, land back to the people. But you know, mathematically speaking, if we have to get our land back, we blacks, then white people shouldn't be here because they were not here.
Yeah, sure.
And if we have to, and white people will be stupid to just leave because they have all the infrastructures that we have here. We haven't built a dam. We blacks, since we took over the South Africa.
That's not entirely true, Cassius, but just finish your point, yeah?
Yeah, my point is we are going to a better direction now. And before you go away, Stephen, please, Cassie must address my issue with Sentlek here in Bloemfontein.
Okay.
She must bring Sentlek to the air because Sentlek is killing us here.
All right,
They are
Cassius.
mounting wires to the trees here in Bloemfontein. Thank you, Stephen.
All right, Cassius and Mangaung, thank you. Luvo, is it Luvo or Loyo?
Luvo, Steve.
Luvo in Quebec. Go for it. Good morning.
Yes, morning, Steve. Steve, first thing first, I'm so sad that you are leaving SAFM.
Thank you.
Good news, but all the best. But it's not good news for me, but all the best.
Thank you, Luvo. I really appreciate it, and thank you for listening. Anyway, VBS.
Yes. VBS. What I would say, Advocate Dalia Mpofu, You know, Steve, I'll tell you something, just a comment. One thing. The most people I hate in the world, 1, the lawyers. 2, politicians.
Yeah.
3, the priests. Because they always bend the truth for their own needs.
Sure.
That's all I will say, Steve.
All right, Luvo. Okay, strong words. Thank you. Nkobeja. Mpo in Randfontein. Mpo, hi.
No, thank you very much, my brother. I think there's something that I think that is not fair. I mean, you asking a question about the organization, he answers DA or he answers the ANC or some post. You must teach, and I think that if he can be able to develop the ability to focus on what is asked, because he does not answer questions, guys. He just goes into a brouhaha approach and then explain things that are not related to the question. The question was, and I think you must still have you guys benefited from corrupt dealings? Yes or no? Are you ready to pay back?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Not stories that he creates. Or this case dead, or this case there. We all got cases here, but at least let's stick to what is in the discussion. And for that matter, I don't think the interview was useful.
All right, and Paul, thank you on the line from Randfontein. Moses in Bramley in Joburg. Moses, hi. Which way do you go, Moses?
Hey, good morning, Stephen. You know, Stephen, we ordinary people, we are in trouble because if this money was looted by Moses from Bramley, Chipolopolo, from Buraudzi, somewhere in Limpopo, it should have been jail term, nothing, no stories. No one will come and explain and try and spin this thing. Hey, the account, you know, Stephen, we are in big trouble because this is a racketeering and money laundering big time. People were stealing from the poor, and they must account for that. You know, even that Jacob Zuma loan, I think it was 7 million or whatever for Nkandla. That was also a money laundering. If you can check, if it can be investigated, Stephen, that money was not paid back to VBS. It's also some of the things these guys were doing. Even some of the guys that Matozi was posting with them when they were at the height of eating that money. They should, everyone, the municipalities that get that money, also in Joburg, and those Boradidani in Venda, there in Limpopo, Mfiza, all these people, we don't care, Malema, whoever. We are tired with people with big money and try to protect themselves because they've got big money. Us, we must be spectators when people are eating big money. No, Stephen, it's time that the wheel of justice must start rolling. People must be account for their sins.
Okay, Moses, thank you on the line from Bramley. All right, so almost so far it seems everyone going kind of one way on this, but there are other views. 086 000 2032. You'll hear from Le Rotori in a moment. You know the number, 086 000 2032. 16 minutes to 8.
Channel the forgiving spirit of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Lee Bell shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Every girl dreams of her perfect wedding. The venue, decor, rings, guest list, the speeches, the vows. Seeing a tear roll down her groom's cheek. The $1 million budget. I think there's a typo in the script, no?
No, carry on. It's $1 million US, Chief.
Bespoke Cartier jewelry inspired by Meghan Markle. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of flowers and multiple designer wedding dresses are nothing out of the ordinary for Lillian Chu, a wedding planner to the super rich in East Asia. She only takes 10 weddings a year at an average cost of $1 million. Channel your best joy with the $1 Million Wedding Planner this Thursday, the 18th of July at 10 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
A across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
7:45. Good morning. You know the number. All right. Well, plenty of calls, and there's a big conversation to have around VBS, and there's been a big conversation for quite a while on it. There are other issues as well this morning, and we do need to just get an update on the situation regarding not the flooding in the Western Cape, but the fires in KwaZulu-Natal. Very dry in some places there. 3 firefighters dying over the weekend, and I understand now 13 people have actually died since these fires started. Tulasizwe Buthelezi is the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, MEC, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and all the listeners of SAFM.
How bad is the damage? To lose 13 people in fires is just awful.
Well, we are going through a devastating time as the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The whole province is engulfed in flames. Just this morning, the Premier, Mr. Thamsanqa Ntuli, is holding a cabinet meeting to see what kind of immediate interventions we can do. I mean, tragically, over the weekend, we lost firefighters in Howick, where 3 firefighters died on the scene, and 3 later succumbed to their injuries in hospital. And in Durban, in the Kenville informal settlement, we lost a life where 200 dwellings were razed to the ground. And the impact has been devastating, especially for the subsistence farmers, because not only have homes been destroyed, but also the grazing field and the infrastructure such as water pipes have been burnt. And the devastation has really been too much across the province.
Do we know what caused these fires? I've seen some reports that actually poachers may have been responsible.
Largely poachers are responsible because poachers light the fire so that the game which they are stalking can come out of the forest. And once they've lighted the fire, it then becomes uncontrollable because of the wind. So in all these incidents, it's humans who are to blame because of their recklessness. And as we've been engaging with distraught communities in some places such as Ulundi and King Cetshwayo, people have only left with the clothes on their backs and all their belongings were destroyed. And therefore, it is really a terrible situation which we are going through. And even the limited resources which are available as a response to disaster relief have become really constrained.
This is a very difficult situation. I mean, to lose people in this way. Do you need help to fight the fires? Do you need help from national government?
We're appealing to national government. We have appealed also to our social partners. Organizations such as the Red Cross have been outstanding in how they have partnered with us as the KwaZulu-Natal government, but it is clear now that we need national intervention so that we restore the lives of thousands of families who have been displaced. As we speak, there are more than 8,000 families whose homes have been completely destroyed and 13,000 whose homes have been partially destroyed. So really this is at the proportion of a national crisis.
MEC, thank you. Tulasizwe Buthelezi from the IFPs, the Provincial Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC, the COGTA MEC in KwaZulu-Natal. You were there, SAFM, 11 minutes to 8. Roland Robertson is the spokesperson for Midlands Emergency Services. Roland, good morning to you. You've lost 3 of your firefighters, and this is a series of very difficult fires to fight.
Yes, good day, sir. Thanks for having me.
Sure, good morning. How difficult are these fires to fight?
Yeah, well, from our side, we're part of the ambulance team that responded to the scene, and just arriving there, our members had to drive through the fire and get through the fire, and it was pretty intense.
And the people that you were trying to treat, some of them, as I understand it, I hate to say this, were actually still on fire.
Yeah, they were when we arrived, but we managed to control the situation because the fire came back at one point for us while we were there, and we managed to contain everything well.
Are you expecting to have to deal with other cases today?
Well, fortunately, last night there was a bit of rain and everything, so we're hoping if the sun is out and if it dries up again, then more than lucky, yeah.
Roland Robertson, thank you. Spokesperson for Midlands Emergency Services, 11 minutes to 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy delays into Santon this Monday morning with a crash on Mike 1 at Corlett Drive up in the Melrose area. If you're on your way to Santon, that's a heavy queue that starts right back around Gold Reef City Boyson's area. No gaps in that heaviness this morning. Also a collision coming in on Santon Drive near Mari Avenue in Parkmore. So that's a delay really extending back along William Mandela up to Peter Place. So Peter Place in from Bryson, Republic Road out from Ramberg. Those routes are feed into William Mandela and then down feeding in slowly to that crash along Santon Drive. N1's fairly statically backed up from Brockfontein all the way down towards New Road. It's been like that from about 6:30 this morning. And a crash going into Pretoria on the N4. This is the Emma Lefleni Highway, just where it becomes Pretoria Street in the Hatfield area, right next to McDonald's. It's a fatal crash. Traffic's very heavy, and it will be for some time. A reminder, if you drive from Howard Kilton down into Pietermaritzburg at some point today, I would assume there'll be a truck crash recovery that needs to take place. The truck is off the roadway down the embankment on Town Hill. Traffic's flying past here at the moment. All lanes are open, but there's also some barrier damage. So not only will the teams have to pull that truck up, but they'll also have to put some closures in to fix that central barrier as well. So expect a day of disruption once recovery gets underway on that section, Durban bound at Pietermaritzburg. M7 going into Pinetown stays heavy. It's one of those mornings where you queue from Hunts Detman all the way up through towards the St John's Avenue Bridge area. The M4 Southern Freeway still jam-packed around Bilo Kongela up in towards the demolition of the China Mall work. That closes the Brook Street option at the top of the M4, and that's why it's so slow. Cape Town, pretty heavy out of Tableview this morning. There's no traffic lights on Bloberg Road and Kuberg Road down at the refinery side, so that's a really big delay. It's having an impact on Wood Drive, on Gee Road, coming out of Tableview into Bloberg Road. And if you're going the other way, West Coast Road, Marine Drive, that's quite heavy from Sunningdale all the way through to Racecourse Road in the Milnerton area. And lots of disruption this morning, traffic-wise around Mfuleni, Old Fora Road, Spine Road, just north of the N2, and Spine Road going in and out of Khayelitsha. Those routes heavily congested. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Channel the forgiving spirit of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Lee Bell shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express, this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
S3 is bringing you the best in Indian cinema every Sunday at 2 p.m. Laugh, dance, get drawn into the drama, revved up with the action, and maybe, just maybe, shed a little tear. Catch Gagi on the 7th of July, Selfie on the 14th, Prince on the 21st, and Laila Majnu on the 28th. It's Indian cinema like you've never seen it before. Channel your best entertainment with Indian cinema only on S3. Open up.
S3. Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, lots of views coming through. Siyabonga on the line from eThekwini VBS. You heard Dahlia Mpofu. Good morning. Are you convinced, Siyabonga?
No, not at all, Stevie. Not at all, Stevie. I think they lost an opportunity for him and the EFF to redeem themselves. They could have said, Stephen, on the hindsight, now this money, they should have not taken the money, then they are going to pay it back. But at least, as a member of the public, one would have understood that people make mistakes, but then they repent. But they are not taking that route. They are still saying they were right, but they know the impact of what happened to the ordinary people who have invested, the crannies who have invested their money there. People lost their livelihoods. And these are the people who are saying they are fighting for a black African child. But they are starving the very same black African child that they're saying they're fighting for. It's good if the money is eaten by them, but it's bad if the money is eaten by white monopoly capital. They can't have such double standards, Stephen.
Yeah.
But I think, Stephen, that points to the fact that here in South Africa, we are in big trouble. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's not the guy who's shouting the most who's going to solve our problem. But it's us as a civil society who have to stand up and say, even if we thought you were a good leader, now we know that you are nothing but trouble. Then I'm glad that their voter, their share of vote is going down. I wish it could go to zero, Stephen, because just imagine if these guys were in power. The wrong that they will do, they will never accept. And they'll make sure that they shut down on those people that they are talking.
All right.
But Stephen,
Yeah.
Stephen, I'm saddened by the fact that you're leaving, Stephen.
Thank you, sir.
Life goes on, my brother.
Yeah, no, it does, and you must keep listening. Siyabonga and Itaquini, thank you. Very kind of you. Jonathan Kabecha, hi. VBS, good morning.
Yes, Darling Paul for the EFF had the opportunity to redeem themselves, and they failed to do such. And also, so they're spitting the truth, like one caller also said. And, Malema should stop insulting our intelligence. Same with the gun. He said he had a plastic gun at the rally. He said, teach the Boers and not kill the Boers. I mean, it's insulting our intelligence here. And then just lastly, Floyd Shivambu. That guy is being tainted. He's such a good leader. He's such an intelligent individual. He should get out of the EFF. That's my personal opinion. He really is one of those leaders that we need, but he's definitely in the wrong party. So that's all I wanted to say.
Jonathan, I've never heard anyone else make that suggestion. That's very interesting. I think some people will be thinking about that for quite a long time. Jonathan Kabecha, thank you. Lebo in Midvaal in Gauteng. Lebo, hi. VBS.
How are you, Stephen?
I'm well, Lebo. Go for it.
I'm good. Stephen, from what I know is that every company, including the bank, they have an account which is called Corporate Social Investment, CSI.
Yes.
So if EFF were saying that the money was paid from the CSI account, I think we would be having a different conversation. But the fact that the money was paid or taken from the people who have been banking their money with VBS, that's a crime on its own. So they used the money that did not belong to Pele or VBS, but they used the money that belonged to the people who were banking with VBS.
Yeah.
That's it. So they stole the money. They need to be held accountable. We cannot be being led by or controlled by EFF, right? When the money is being stolen by them, it's okay. We need to understand. But if it was stolen by a white man, it was going to be white monopoly capital. So they need to be fair. They stole the money. They need to go to jail. That's it.
All right. Lebo and Midvaal, very interesting. Thank you. Pule in Northwest. Pule, hi.
Yes, Steve, how are you?
Yeah, I'm well, Pule. Go for it.
Dalipo Kudema didn't answer any question that you asked him. You asked him about EFF. He speaks about DA and EF and ANC and City Press and N7. Dalipo came there, Steve. I'm going to quote a paragraph. Dalipo came there as a defense lawyer for EFF, not as a social person. A civil person rather, to answer questions. Now, here it's a affidavit that you always refer to when you ask him a question. Paragraph 27.1. Matosi says, to my knowledge, Skamega is a company owned by Brian Shivambu, a brother to Floyd Shivambu, who's a deputy president of the EFF. The company was provided to me by Floyd to make payments that I promised to EFF. Now, when you read the other paragraph above, Matosi said to Malema and Shivambu, go and open an account with VBS so that I can put the money that I promised to that account owned by EFF. They don't do that. Instead, Shivambu went to a brother to open an account with VBS, and he gave Matosi, the convicted criminal, the account that the money must not pay there. The donation was not clean.
like he claimed that there are people that donated to EFF, I mean the ANC and DA. The donation was a corrupt activity. That put the money to my brother, the brother will give money to us. Looks like a loan or a donation. That's their package of looting the vendor people. So why did he open an account in the name of the EFF and put the money there? We all know that the CR17 was a vehicle for Ramaphosa to campaign and win ANC election. We all know that.
Yeah.
And this is different. That's the impact we are answering. It's a vehicle to lose money.
All right. No, Pule, I hear you. Thank you. Sorry, Pule, we are out of time, but I hear you on the line from Northwest. You're this FM leading the conversation, 8 o'clock.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, AfriForum to lay charges against Malema and Shivambu and Trump to be confirmed as presidential nominee. Good morning. Lobby group AfriForum says it's preparing to lay charges of corruption, fraud and money laundering against EFF leaders Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu. This after the former VBS chairperson Chifiwa Matodzi implicated the pair and some ANC leaders in the collapse of the bank as part of his plea deal. Matodzi pleaded guilty to 33 charges which include corruption, theft and money laundering. He stated in his affidavit that the EFF received monthly donations and millions of rand of a so-called business loan from VBS since 2017 through a company called Skemeka Projects. Kali Kriel is the CEO of AfriForum.
We have instructed our legal team to look at these facts and to make sure that we draw up this case that will be lodged with the police as soon as it has been drawn up. AfriForum is a watchdog organization. So firstly, I think it's important that we have equality before the law, but also secondly that the rights be protected of those victims of crime. In this specific case, it's the clients of the VBS Bank, which are mostly poor people.
Robbers have shot dead a police officer and wounded 4 other officers at a petrol station in Bizana in the Eastern Cape. The police members were robbed of their firearms and cell phones. The suspects fled in a bakkie and a car following the incident, which happened last night. The police officers were returning from another crime scene when they ran into the robbers. The South African Police Service is launching a specialized social media monitoring unit aimed at tracking down criminals hiding behind online profiles. The move follows investigations and convictions of some individuals involved in the unrest in which 350 people were killed in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal in 2021. Police said the incident revealed the need for closer scrutiny of online activities. National Police spokesperson Athlenda Mate.
Already there is a capability that is there to monitor the media space and to pick up on incidents. And the number of incidents that we are picking up on through social media is assisting us. So we have various capabilities within the SAPS that are already dealing with social media, the social media space, and ensuring that we monitor it. But obviously, if such a team is put in place, it's to enhance and improve our capabilities.
The death toll from a runaway fire in Boston in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands has risen to 6. 3 volunteer firefighters died yesterday. 3 others died in hospital. This takes the number of people who've died from wildfires in the province in the last week to 13. 2 firefighters were injured and are still in hospital. Meanwhile, the Umgeni local municipality says poachers are suspected to have started the fire. Municipal Mayor Chris Papas says urged residents to be vigilant as windy and dry conditions persist.
There is a really strong fire danger in place at the moment. So we urge people not to start fires and to be cautious out there. When you do see smoke, please report it immediately so that we can try and attend to it as quick as possible. It is fire season, but it is a particularly bad one. And across KwaZulu-Natal, we've seen hundreds of hectares of land lost so far.
Further afield, and finally, former U.S. President Donald Trump has arrived in Milwaukee to attend the Republican National Convention. He's expected to be formally confirmed as the party's candidate for the presidential election in November. Trump says he will not allow a shooter or a potential assassin to force him to reschedule his plans. He sustained a wound to the ear when he was shot at a rally on Saturday. The BBC's Nomia Iqbal reports.
Security was already going to be very tight at the RNC. This has been designated a special security event, and officials have said there's no real operational changes that will be happening here. We do understand that the Secret Service is going to ban guns in federal spaces within the convention. I mean, Wisconsin is an open carry state, which means that it allows the public to carry guns around with them. But they said in terms of there's a soft perimeter outside of the federal jurisdiction where they can't really control that.
Recapping the top story, lobby group AfriForum says it's preparing to lay charges of corruption, fraud and money laundering against EFF leaders Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu. This after the former VBS chairperson Chifiwa Matodzi implicated the pair and some ANC leaders in the collapse of the bank as part of his plea deal. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Outsurance is the best insurance company in South Africa because they do what they're supposed to do. Pay claims. Outsurance has consistently had the best ombudsman for short-term insurance results for the past 11 years and awarded Best Short-Term Insurer by News24 for the past 2 years. Why would you want to be with anyone else? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754 or visit outsurance.co.za for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's, C's and information online.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, rugby. It's a new look Springboks to face Portugal in Bloemfontein. And South Africa's KG Montjane wins the Wimbledon wheelchair doubles title. All this and more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy getting into Pretoria this morning. A fatal crash involving a taxi on the N4 at McDonald's just by Pretoria Street there. That traffic's heavy all the way back through to Watermeyer Street. We warned it would take some time to clear this scene, and that traffic into Pretoria off the N4 is going to stay heavy for some time. Also coming out of Montana, a vehicle fire on Sefaka Makato earlier, still backlogging things towards the highway, and a crash on the N4 near the Duranport Plaza. So if you're driving eastbound towards the N1, that is a delay as well. That's on the Rustenburg Highway. Joburg's Mike 1 up to Sandton remains heavy this morning from Boyson's all the way through to a crash scene just up by the Caller Drive exit. Durban, the two big highways going north stay under pressure. M4 from Umbilo into town centre, that's the closure of Brook Street, and the N2 from the M7 jam-packed still through towards the Westwood Mall into the roadworks. There's more queues into Pinetown on the M7. That stays really heavy this morning from Hans Detman through towards St John's Avenue Bridge territory. Cape Town, though, traffic lights coming out of Tableview towards the refinery. It's Bloberg Road and Kuberg Road. That's just on a flash mode. So there's a lot of congestion that side of Tableview, Wood Drive, Gee Road, all badly backed up. Other motorists getting caught in a bit of extra delay on Marine Drive, which is slowly leaving Tableview out towards Sunset Beach area. And Four Tracker Road, Jake Skirville, right in the heart of Goodwood. A lot of congestion. All approaches jammed into that junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
9 after 8, good morning, you with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Due to speak to Lebogang Maile, the Economic Development MEC in Gauteng. Lots to ask about e-tolls. Not sure if we'll get through to him this morning. We'll talk about cybersecurity as well. And then don't forget your mediated conversation. Listen to me this morning. Your mediated conversation around the census. Really important, actually, for many reasons. There's a lot to look at because there are some claims that, in fact, it hasn't been done correctly. You know the number, and of course, burning issue this morning really about VBS, but Also, the flooding in Cape Town, the fires in KwaZulu-Natal, there are other issues as well. There was a big cabinet lekgotla over the weekend. People sort of working together. Are they? Yes, it seems. I think so. Maybe. Really? We'll wait for the leaks. Sure to come. 086 000 2032. Good morning.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Robert on the line from Germiston. Robert, good morning. VBS. Which way do you go?
Yes, good morning, Stephen. On the VPS saga, what I have learned to this politician, I learned that if a white man slapped a black guy, the whole world has to sneeze. And then when the black guy brutally kills a black man, everything must be okay. That is what I learned from these guys of the EFF, because you ask him a very clear question, but he failed to say no or yes. Instead, he referred to DA and the ANC while we are talking about the EFF and the saga of Zuma between them. You see, that is what I learned from him. Yes.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Very terrible.
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, the NPA, from what I can see, I think we're at the point where the NPA needs to make a decision one way or another. It needs to say, yes, we're prosecuting because there's a case, or it needs to come publicly and say we're not prosecuting because there is no case, because if there is no case, the people concerned have a right to have their names cleared.
Yes, but what they have to be done is that those guys have to go to court and then the investigation.
Yeah.
And then, yes.
Yeah. No, I hear you. All right, Robert on the line from Germiston. Thank you. KG in Mangung. KG, hi.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure, KG.
I'm not sure if this matter is the correct. It's actually a chartered accountant. I'm starting to suspect that
I think he was.
He was a fake one. My reason is this, Steve. A proper chartered accountant would have known, even if you are busy stealing, you don't steal on an industrial scale like this person was doing. No. It defies my logic how he was receiving, for example, 500 million rand from municipalities and almost with immediate effect disburse that money all over the show.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you are a CA, you will know. This thing, there's going to be a hole somewhere. There's going to be a gap. How am I going to close that gap? And, it brings me to the thing that people always say. There is a corruption in the private sector. But usually when they say in the private sector, they would be referring to white-operated private sector. So the difference between that corruption in the private sector and the other corruption is because in the private sector, when those people steal, they know if a tree is having 1,000 peaches, you don't steal 900 out of 1,000.
Yeah.
You steal 10, and then you wait for next year for the tree to produce again, and then you steal another 10. So in this particular instance, I mean, it is very scary. I'm hoping psychologists and these important people will visit him in prison to go and inquire into his mind.
So KG, let me just say one or two things about that, if I may, if you don't mind. Is that Matodzi might have been the kind of mastermind, ringleader, whatever phrase you want to use, but he wasn't just him alone. There was a network, and there's a lawyer who, from what I can see, has had other issues in, I think, Angola or Mozambique or something. So with these things, the one thing I've learned, and I mean, Philip Truter was the guy who was in charge of the finances. He's in jail. Or he was anyway, he was sentenced. With these things, and we learnt it during state capture as well, it's never one person. There's always a network and a group of people. And these people often come from very different parts of our society, and they work together in this. And it's important to remember that too, I think.
In the medical aid industry, there's a lot of corruption going on there.
Yeah.
I'll make you a very simple example.
Okay.
If a person is admitted to a hospital, a private hospital, to remove a tooth, when the invoice comes from the medical aid, you will see a whole lot of other people who claimed there. You don't know, this person visited me and asked me 2-3 questions, and then he left. He claims 2,000 rand. A person comes to my bed and asks me, but what did you eat before the tooth started aching? And then you answer those 2-3 questions. And then he's leaving, he's claiming. But the medical aid, they continue to function for a very long time previously, and they'll continue to function for a very long time to come. Because when they steal, the professionals, that is, when your GP calls in, a physio calls in this person, and the other person, who are totally not relevant or required for your condition at that time in hospital.
All right.
It's a form of corruption.
All right.
But it is not done on an industrial scale, Stephen. That is the difference, I think.
All right, KG, I hear you. I mean, look, you say that, and I presume you have evidence you say that backs it up. But I hear your point, your greater point, which is about how did Matutsi think this was going to end? So thank you, KG, on the line from Mangung. Mrs. Naidu in eThekwini. Mrs. Naidu, it's been years. I mean, years since we last heard you. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I've been following the story from 2018.
Yes.
Now, there is something that also broke out, was that the EFF Malema used some of the money to finance a restaurant owned by his cousin.
Yes.
I've got the story.
Hello, Mrs.
And
yeah.
when Police Van Dyke broke up the story, they said they're going to take her up, but up to today they haven't taken her up. What are they afraid of? You know, Stephen, these are old people's money, Stephen. If I had lost the money at my age, to see them sitting outside the bank,
yeah,
you know what's the worst thing that could happen, Stephen? I feel for them because I'm old just like them.
Yeah. No, I hear
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Snyder. Good to hear from you again. You can hear sympathies going in that particular direction. You really can. Pumzile on the line from the Eastern Cape. Pumzile, before you speak, let me just remind people, because I know you're about to make a comment about VBS, and that's your right to, but you also are not just a member for the ANC, you're an office bearer, you're a councillor. So let me just sort of put that there first. Pumzile, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, SG. SG, firstly, I am very worried that you are leaving the station.
Pumzile,
and when you came in, I'm the one that shortened you to SG, and everybody followed me. And if you recall, and so I'm very happy. At least I gave you a shortened version of your name.
Thank you. People had called me that before, but you played a big role in it. So thank you.
No, it's fine. Fine. Thank you very much, SG.
And it's an honor. It's an honor to have a nickname. Hey, Pumzile, it really is. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm equally called PJ, you know. SG, you know, Dalimpofu, if you came as an advocate, I would have said he failed his duty to defend the EFF, particularly Floyd and Malema. But he came as chairperson, or former chairperson, so to speak. And his spin doctor role has actually yielded nothing. Because the fact is, there's money that has actually been given to Floyd, EFF, and Malema. Now, those are processes of crime. And if Matotsi is guilty, they are equally guilty because they have benefited out of process of crime. So that is stolen money. So I don't understand the point that Dali was trying to make. So for me, the sooner the law enforcement agencies, in fact, they are closing ranks and arrest whoever that is involved, irrespective of political status, they must account because honestly, they stole from the poor. They stole even from public purse. That money was coming from municipalities as well.
Yeah.
But mostly touching is money that is coming from the vulnerable members of the society, the old and the poor pensioners, you know. That is my point. But Dali has not done well at all into your interview. And to me, they should have actually organized somebody else.
Sure, Pumzile. Look, I mean, sometimes, you know, when people will say this person did well or badly in an interview, it also depends on the facts that they're dealing with. Anyway, I make no comment about that, but just to say. Katu in Midrand. Hi, Katu.
Hi, Stephen. Listen, firstly, we've started a petition. You're staying, and we are going to make you a counter offer. Your listeners will pay your salary from now.
Thank you.
So, as a citizen of Venda, I also come from Venda.
Yeah.
Our house was built through the VBS.
Sure.
And also, this is not just a punchline or poor people or what. We have relatives who have lost money. There's a lot of old people who have died from heart attacks. There are people who have died from strokes. There are people who are saving money to take their children to universities, and those children now are just lingering. So the effect is so much, much, much bigger. And for me, I would really, 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 if I had the power, is to speak to the South African Reserve Bank, SARS, Office of the Presidency, to bail out all these people that they have not been paid back their money. Pay them back the same way you bail out SAA, and we can discuss the politics and everything afterwards. Because these are people's lives. I really wish I had enough money to do a documentary so that the world can see the suffering that a lot of these people are going through.
Yeah. No, Kato, there's so much to it. And I think in a way the story kind of isn't ended. And Kato, the way you describe it about how important it was to your family. And I think it was, it's like African Bank was when it was formed, was a big thing. One of the founders of African Bank passed away recently. It's a big thing. Kato, I hear you. All right. 21 minutes now after 8.
Nelson Mandela once said,
"It is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it."
SAFM urges you to identify those in need around you and to do what you can to make a difference to them. Tata Mandela went further to say, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we led. SAFM celebrates Mandela Month. The Science of Life on SAFM.
Well, one of the things that we've seen over the last few months, but over the last couple of years, are the big increase in the number of cyber hacks. We've seen it in the Justice Department, we've seen it outside of government, but more and more we're also seeing it in government. Currently, the big one that everyone's been talking about is the National Health Laboratory Service hack. And these are usually ransomware attacks. In other words, someone hacks into your system, closes it off from you, and to get access back to it, you have to pay them. Zaniwe listen to me this morning. Zaniwe Intatisi Asare is an expert on cyber law, public policy, and internet governance. Zaniwe, good morning, and sorry for murdering your name so early in the morning.
Morning, Stephen. It's a Monday morning. You're allowed.
Thank you. If only everyone was so kind. We've seen so many attacks recently, particularly on government institutions. And this makes me very concerned that government institutions, for some reason, may be more vulnerable than others. I presume that whoever has your data has to have a duty of care to protect their systems and your data. And if your data is hacked, there'll be consequences.
Absolutely. I mean, the POPI Act really lays out what a responsible party in any instance would have to do. And in an instance like this, it's really what the responsible party in this instance, like you said, whether it's a public institution or a private entity, what they do after this breach. We know we live in a world where we cannot avoid cyber attacks and breaches, but it's about the mitigation measures that are put in place post facto.
I don't know if people can put mitigation measures in place in a situation like this. People's data gets hacked. It's very difficult. The people who run these services, are there certain protocols or procedures that they are supposed to legally kind of follow to make sure this doesn't happen?
And those are exactly what the mitigation measures are. So what the POPI Act really looks at is a few things. The first one would be the notification. Did this responsible party inform the affected parties or the data subjects about this breach, about this leak of information, and have they reasonably done what needs to be done to ensure that more of this information is not leaked, or at least they stop it from being leaked further. The second one would be, did they inform the information regulator about this leak? So, the information regulator would obviously have protocols as well that they would put out there, and I suppose would come in as some sort of a damage control partner in the entire scenario. So that would be the first one. The most important thing to look at is, what did this entity, this responsible party, do when they were aware of this particular breach?
And if someone is unhappy with how their information may have been stolen or whatever, is there action they can take? I mean, is it the information regulator? Is it someone else?
So there are various pathways that can be utilized here. The first one would be to go to the information regulator, and here this is where the data subject themselves can file a complaint if they believe that the information, just wasn't handled in a manner that a person who's got a certain duty of care on your information should have. So if they've got evidence that maybe the employees within this ecosystem just weren't taking care of the information, or if they had known for the longest time that there was some kind of vulnerability. There are various permutations here of why an individual would go to complain about the handling of their data. But another remedy, now that our poppy has matured slightly more than when we started these conversations in 2020, 2021, a civil remedy. A civil remedy here would be where an individual can prove that they suffered damages as a result of this data breach, and then they can initiate civil proceedings. Now, in this instance, you would have to show that this entity was negligent with your information, quite similar to what you would do when you're going to the information regulator, and also show the amount or the type of harm that you have suffered as an individual. So those are the two ways that I would say you would go. But we also know that a lot of the times, it has to do with banking or insurance, these really data-intensive entities and sectors, where one can also pursue going to the ombuds in, whether it's a banking or financial sector ombuds or a insurance or any kind of credit related ombudsman in this instance.
Zaniwe, thank you very much indeed. Always very generous with your time. Zaniwe Ntasisi Asare is an expert on cyber law, public policy and internet governance. Coming up now to 27 minutes after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Well, an amazing test series against Ireland now for Portugal.
Yeah, the Boks are regrouping with fresh talent and they are ready. It's an exciting time for fans as we are looking forward to seeing the new players step up. Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus says a refreshed squad will be available for this upcoming test in Bloemfontein following that narrow 25-24 loss to Ireland. The Boks will feature a mix of World Cup winners and emerging talent, notably Franco Mostert and Edwill van der Merwe. They are out due to injuries, while Damien de Ellender has exited the camp for personal reasons. 5 new players have joined the squad, including Elrich Lowe and Andre Hugo Venter. Erasmus aims to build squad depth ahead of the 2027 Rugby World Cup, providing players with valuable international experience. The matchday team will be announced tomorrow. Tennis action. South Africa's KG Montjane alongside Japan's Yui Kamiji triumphed in the women's wheelchair tennis double at Wimbledon. The duo defeated the Dutch players of Didi de Groot and Jiske Griffon in straight sets, serving 4 aces and converting 3 of 8 break points. Montjane and Kamiji showed their dominance after a slow start. They took control in both sets to secure victory. This will mark Montjane's 3rd Grand Slam doubles title, adding to her impressive career. The victory also follows their success at the French Open earlier this year, capping off a spectacular season. And more good news for Team South Africa, as 3-time under-20 medalist, the South African Benjamin Richardson, ran a meeting record of 9.8 seconds to win the 100-meter meet in Switzerland. The 20-year-old, who claimed the world under-24 by 100-meter gold and the 100-meter silver in 2021, before getting 100-meter bronze in 2022, dipped under 10 seconds for the first time, improving on his previous personal best of 10.08 seconds that he equaled in the heats to beat the American Ronnie Baker and Gambia's Ibrahima Kamara. Cycling now, Tadej Pogacar took a significant step towards reclaiming the Tour de France with a 2nd straight stage yesterday. A superb ride following on from his commanding victory in stage 14 saw a 2nd consecutive stage win in the Pyrenees, a huge step towards reclaiming his Tour de France title. He produced another superb ride. The 2-time champion left Jonas Vingegaard behind to claim the stage by 1 minute 8 seconds, with Remco Evenepoel finishing 3rd, almost 3 minutes slower. Here's Pogacar.
When we come to the bottom of the last climb, it was I was the limit a little bit when Jonas tried to drop me, but then I could see that he's also starting to suffering a bit. So when he tried to drop me the last time, then I saw that he don't have the legs to go to the top, so I tried my own, but it was super tough in the final.
And that's a wrap of your Sport on Sunrise. We'll bring you more top of the hour and around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thank you very much indeed. How many are there of us? Is it 62 million or 61 million? We'll have the debate around numbers and the census in just a moment. With SFM leading the conversation, 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the long-distance bus operator Intercape says police will now have to account to Parliament on why they are reluctant to formulate a plan to protect its passengers and drivers against violent attacks. Lobby group AfriForum says it's preparing to lay charges of corruption, fraud and money laundering against EFF leaders Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu. This after the former VBS chairperson Chifiwa Matodzi implicated the pair and some ANC leaders in the collapse of the bank as part of his plea deal. And robbers have shot dead a police officer and wounded 4 other officers at a petrol station in Bizana in the Eastern Cape. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good, very heavy going into Pretoria on the N4. We've been advising you to avoid this one this morning. It's a fatal crash at Hatfield, just as the N4 becomes Pretoria Street. Traffic still very heavily back through to Rousseau Street. You've got the options of Pretoria Street to the north, Limwood Road to the south, and they would be your preferred options this morning. The Mike 1 from Boyson through to Santon stays heavily backed up. That's a crash near Caller Drive, which is causing a real long slog out this morning, getting up through Central Joburg, through Parktown and Houghton Killarney on your way to Santon very, very slowly. Also a breakdown on the N3 around Linksfield Road to watch out for coming southbound. The northbound's quite busy, but there is that breakdown on the southbound side. Durban's N2, still quite a bit of pressure, moving through Spaghetti Junction into the works at Westwood Mall. That backlog still around the M7. The M4 Southern Freeway stays busy as you line up into the CBD, largely around the closure of Brook Street. And Cape Town's been a pretty busy back to work at Monday. Of course, the schools are open again this morning after a bit of disruption last week, so more traffic volume in the mix. It's noticeable this morning. The N2 from Langa through to Hospital Ben's heavy. The N1 from Platte Clefairy all the way through the city centre is really bad. And there's some traffic light issues coming out of Tableview this morning. Bloberg Road at Kuberg Road's down. That's pretty heavy. And as a result, maybe extra traffic going the other routes because Marine Drive out to Sunset Beach is quite bad. And that Malabongwe, the back road off Sandown Road towards Dunoon's a heavy backlog as well, leaving that Tableview Parklands area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
If you love premium documentaries, then we know you love Thursday nights on S3. Broadcaster Alice Levine asks if there's anything such as normal when it comes to sex and sexuality in the 2020s. She meets sexual adventurers up and down Britain, those pushing the boundaries of sex, intimacy and relationships. Tune into Sex Actually, Thursdays at 9 p.m. Channel your inner curiosity with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
And we will buy 500 cars and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car. We'll come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
The European outfit want to interrogate African resilience, but Tanzanian champions are highly spirited to rise. German Bundesliga club FC Augsburg battles it out with Yanga SC from Tanzania. This is the Mpumalanga Premiers International Cup 2024. Do not miss out on the mouth-watering clash between FC Augsburg and Young Africans on Saturday, 20 July at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Tickets are available at CompuTicket. Proudly brought to you by the TS Galaxy Foundation and SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mediated Conversation on SAFM.
26 minutes now to 9. Time for your mediated conversation this morning. Last week, the SA Medical Research Council published a report showing that there may be major problems with the 2022 census, which was published last year. This new report suggests that because of technical problems with the census, and perhaps because it was conducted right at the end of the pandemic in 2022, the census may have overestimated the number of people in our country, and instead of the 62 million people the census says we may only have 61 million. This new report also suggests that some of the estimates regarding the age of our population may be wrong, that it has overestimated the number of people who are over 50 and underestimated the number of people who are under 9. And it may also have overestimated the number of men compared to women and the number of white and Indian people relative to other groups. Within this, and I think this may be a big factor in this conversation, is what's called the undercount. In other words, as I understand it, the number of people who are not counted directly by Statistics South Africa. In this case, the undercount was 31%, which is considered to be very, very high for a census at this time. So then, what do the two reports say? Why is there a difference in their outcomes? What does it mean for the rest of the census? First, one of the people making the claims against the census, Professor Tom Moultrie, is a professor of demography and director of the Centre for Actuarial Research at the University of Cape Town. Then to respond, the Statistician General of South Africa from Statistics South Africa is Rusenga Malaleka. And then, And then Professor Nancy Stigler is a full professor of demography at the Statistics and Population Studies Department at the University of the Western Cape. We start then with Professor Tom Moultrie. Professor Moultrie, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
You've conducted a big analysis of the census. Why do you believe they got some of the important numbers or the important conclusions incorrect?
So the underlying logic of what we've done is that populations have their own internal logic to them. The people who are aged 10 years ago must be aged 20 now. And that's a demographic accounting identity of how we can really understand how a population ages and moves through time. In addition to that, because of our extensive work during COVID of trying to understand and unpack excess deaths, we released weekly reports on mortality in the country. We have a very good understanding of the level of mortality in the country and equally a very good understanding of the number of births, which have been reported by Home Affairs and reported by Stats SA. And all of those things have to eventually cohere into a consistent and coherent picture of the South African population. And what we have identified is that there are a large number of inconsistencies at small areas and small populations, as you mentioned, among certain age groups in certain provinces, which really defy demographic kind of interpretations of how we understand the South African population, and are inconsistent with the results of almost every other South African census going back to 1996.
Okay, so to put it another way, you look at all the other data that you have, and you say all the other data that we have projects that the population would be X. Statistics South Africa came up with a different figure.
Yes, and the point then being is that if we have a good understanding of the number of births and deaths in the population, we kind of think that the 2011 census, which was coherent with the 2001 census and previous censuses, if we have trust in those things, well, then the only possible explanations for the discrepancies are either that the census is wrong or that there has been a radically different pattern of migration into the country, which is far different from what we would have anticipated. The problem with the latter argument is that, as you mentioned in your introduction, much of the excess of what we see based on those our past understandings is in the population aged over 50, which is not the population which migrates into the country. And that calls into question those results. And then the further analyses that we did at small areas of municipalities, comparing with the IEC voters' rolls, comparing with a lot of other data, again, tends to point in the direction of the census being wrong. And we know that the undercount in the census was 31%, a world record. And one of our concerns is that while Stats SA did indeed follow international protocol and the UN manuals for how to conduct a census and how to estimate the undercount, the survey, which was designed to estimate that undercount, was not powerful enough, given the extent of the undercount, to really accurately and efficiently adjust for the size of the population, which is what has caused those problems at small areas and in small population estimates.
Just to clarify this idea of what an undercount actually is, as I understand it, an undercount would mean that 31% of the people in the country were not counted directly by Stats SA, and there's what's called a numeration survey, where they basically conduct a small survey afterwards to try and work that out. Is that correct?
That is basically correct. According to Stats SA's own documents, they counted 42.3 million people in the country at the time of the census. And the post-enumeration survey was used to adjust that census enumerated population up to the final estimate of 62 million.
You talk about all of the data that you looked at. I would have thought that Stats SA would look at some of this data as well. What I'm trying to get to is your report and the census looking at the same data, or are you looking at and coming to different conclusions, or are you looking at different sources of data or different pieces of data?
Well, I think that when Stats SA released the census, they did not conduct a full evaluation of those data relative to 2011, or the previous census data, or the reported births and deaths, or down to municipal level, or at other fine levels of disaggregation. And so, they've tended, I think, to say, well, this is what we conducted the census. We counted so many million people. We have adjusted for the undercount or for a fairly small scale survey, which our argument is that it's not sufficiently accurate, which is what's caused the size of Richtersveld to notionally double between the two censuses. But fundamentally, I don't think that they went through as forensically through the historical and the current data to see, does this all hang together?
As I understand it, more information, so more numbers from the census will be released soon about certain categories. As that information becomes available, could it clear up for us one way or another which is correct? In other words, could it suddenly clarify some of the discrepancies, or is the information coming not going to do that because it's not material to this dispute?
It would be really useful if we had a 10% sample from the census as has historically been made available, and we'd be able to pick through a sample of the unit records far more carefully, which we haven't been able to do so far. But beyond that, I think that the numbers as released by Stats SA are their numbers. Our concern is that they just don't make a lot of sense. Whether it's in migrants into the Eastern Cape, for example, or small municipalities growing by implausible amounts. And while we would hope that the data on births and deaths, which are also collected during the census, would be released quite soon, we haven't been able to look at those. But we are not entirely certain as to what's in those data or whether they are indeed usable. We know that there are roughly 500,000 or 600,000 deaths every year in the country. The census asked their module about deaths in the household during the census. One would expect that the census data on deaths would reveal roughly 500,000 or 600,000 deaths. And if it doesn't, that will provide further evidence that the census, struggled because it was conducted in the middle of a pandemic to accurately and fully capture the information on the population. But we also have other things. We know that there's a very odd shortage of children under 5, and no amount of new data is going to resolve that. The number of children aged 5 in the census is incompatible with the number of births reported by Home Affairs and Stats SA.
Professor Tom Moultrie, thank you. Professor of Demography and Director of the Centre for Actuarial Research at the University of Cape Town. You with SAFM, 17 minutes to 9. Your mediated conversation around the census continues. The Statistician General of South Africa from Stats SA is Rusenga Maluleka. The Statistician General, good morning to you and thank you for your time.
Good morning to you, Stephen, and let me greet the listeners and fellow panelists.
You've heard the view of Professor Moultrie, and I presume you've read their report. Do you still believe your numbers are correct?
Firstly, the census numbers are correct. The second issue, it's not true that we haven't done any data confrontation.
We have looked at the population register. We have looked at the IEC voter register. But as we know, people that are in the population register and the people that are in the voter register are not enough. We always have in the population register, particularly the number of births. We have about 89-90% of the number of births. The number of births per annum that get registered at Home Affairs. So there are delays, sometimes up to 3 years, particularly in the age categories of mothers that are too young and too old. So that we have looked. But we also know that you will not get undocumented migrants in the population register, as it is in the IEC voters roll. So those ones help you to do what you call data confrontation. Secondly, we stand by our post-enumeration survey. It's solid and it has never been in dispute. We have used it since census 1996, 2001, 2011, and indeed in 2022. What is different this time, and Prof. Moultrie will agree with me, is that we conducted a census in February, not in the regular time of your October. So in 1996, 2001, and 2011, we conducted the census in October. This time, for financial constraints, we conducted it in February. But other than that, we didn't do tests in two provinces, the Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. But those are not tests that matter. What matters is the final count. And we went, and we don't sit and record what we think. Whatever is in the census result or report is what members of the public have told us. And Prof. Moultrie will also agree with me that in this regard, him and a colleague of his, who I respect very well, I must admit, distinguished demographers, were asked to come into the evaluation of the census in the battery of evaluations that we do. So we have our own experts, local and international, after the census and the post-enumeration survey are done. We also go to the Statistics Council, who bring their own experts, local and international. They were asked to come on the side of council to give us more insight, but for reasons that both him and I know, they couldn't come on board. When the results were released, him and Prof. Darrington sent me a report. I sent 4 of my deputies to go and meet with them, to tell them we stand by our numbers and we will not change the numbers. And Prof. Moultrie knows very well that once numbers are changed, are released, they are not changed, because if Prof. Darrington comes tomorrow and Prof. Moultrie come and say change the numbers, we change them. Tomorrow, our users are equal. It doesn't matter whether you are the president, CEO, academic, or you are a commentator or member of the public. Users, we treat them equally.
Sure.
If you would come tomorrow, Steve, and say change the numbers, we would change them. But lastly, we gave them a report, him and Prof. Darrington. But they chose, actually, in his last email, Prof. Moultrie to me, is that he doesn't see a need for further engagement. Then they would release their report. And in their report, they didn't mention what we gave them. So the point is, we don't engage on matters of intellect by walking away. We engage, and where we disagree, we disagree. But I can't say that, no, I wouldn't have sent 4 of my deputies and given him my report if I didn't take seriously these issues.
Okay. So, Statistician General, I can see that there's obviously, as always in these cases, there's a backstory to this, and some of it may be important, some of it may be not. The issue of a 10% sample, is this something that exists in Stats SA that you could make available to everybody?
It will be released at a particular point in time. One of the things that happens is there is no doubt, and Prof. Moultrie makes this point, which is you can't say certain things are not important, Steve. It's not possible for you as a commentator in public. You have to listen to everything that is being said, because you can't be taking sides. You have to allow everyone to say their say. Now, back to the issues. Yes, back to the issues.
is that we have traditionally done so. But one of the things, remember, the Statistician General doesn't just release numbers. And Prof. Moultrie knows the process. Once we have done everything, a battery of tests, everything, the Statistics Council must issue a statement. They could issue a statement and say the data is not fit for purpose. And it has happened in other countries, not in South Africa. A country like Nigeria, there are census results that were never released because of these kinds of issues. But in our case, once local and international experts had advised council, and indeed, including was the people who have conducted censuses in different countries, they advised council. Council said, Statistician General, we are comfortable, release the numbers. They are fit for purpose. That statement is a public document. It was released by a chair of council, Professor Everett. And in the end, once they were released, they said, don't rush to release data on fertility as well as data on mortality, and particularly on mortality. It's because we have to do furthermore confrontation from data coming out of Home Affairs. And since COVID-19, we have a backlog of data at Home Affairs that hasn't reached their head office for purposes. In the past, we would readily release causes of death because we had this data. And this is part and parcel of our data confrontation, so that when we release numbers, they can stand the test of time and they can be used for planning into the future. Thank you, Stephen.
Professor, Statistician General, thank you for your time. Rusenga Maluleka is the Statistician General of South Africa. In a moment, Professor Nancy Stigler, a full professor of demography, 9 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Two major delays still with us around the Gauteng Highway networks. One on the N4 in the Pretoria's Hatfield area stays badly backed up. A fatal crash involving a taxi from much earlier this morning. Traffic on the way in on the N4 towards Hatfield and towards Pretoria stays backed heavily through to Rousseau Street. Also, the collision on the Mike 1 North around Corlett Drive this morning. It's been with us a good couple of hours already, and it still is very heavy. If you're on your way to Sandton using the Mike 1, there's queues effectively from the Crown interchange all the way up into that Melrose area. Also, the M2 struggling along. There's a crash before Crown interchange before you get into that Mike 1 traffic. The M2, that collision scene between Risick Street and the Crown, pushing traffic back through towards the Joe Slovo exit, and still very slow into Sandton on Winnie Mandela and Sandton Drive. That's a crash at Parkmore. So because Winnie Mandela approaching Sandton so heavy, you've also got backlogs coming on Bryanson's Peter Place and also out of Randburg along Republic Road as well. Durban side, the N2 running northbound. The breakdowns between Komashu and Gateway have all cleared up. That traffic starting to move. The N2 north through Spaghetti Junction has eased up after rush hour volumes as well. And then Cape Town this morning, the N1 still fairly heavy queues between Plattekloof and the CBD. The N2 from around Robert Sobukwe just after the airport stays really busy through to Hospital Bend, and Marine Drive still very slow this morning coming out of Tableview. Queues from Sunningdale all the way through to about the second set of lights at Sunset Beach. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Get ready for an exciting show. Believe it, family. It's a big day for 25K. In this brand new show, join us as we follow couples across South Africa on their journey to create their dream wedding for only 25K.
Our biggest hope is that everything fits in the budget of 25K.
There were many things that we had to do in 3 days' time.
We'll share in their disappointments.
It's also stress. Somebody let me down early this morning.
It's a really expensive dress. I don't know how we're going to afford to buy this dress.
And celebrate their triumphs.
I always dreamed of this day, but it will phethahala jwang.
Thank you to everyone that made this day.
A big day for 25K starts the 9th of June, Sunday, 7:30 p.m. only on SABC2.
The world's best cooking show is coming to S3. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumapi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa starts Saturday 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
6 minutes to 9, continue your mediated conversation around the census. Professor Nancy Stiglitz, a full professor of demography at the Statistics and Population Studies Department at the University of the Western Cape. Professor Stiglitz, good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you. When you hear both sides of this, is one side right? Is another side wrong? Is there something happening here in the middle? If it's numbers, I would presume that you can't have something in the middle. One side must be right and one side must be wrong.
Actually, that's not really the case, because what Prof. Moultrie explained is totally right, and what the statistician general explained is also totally right. They're speaking about slightly different things. One is really the statistician general explain how the data collection and then how what we call the imputation estimation was done, and they believe that they have followed the international guidelines. And then Prof. Moultrie did something that we do. This is normal for a demographer. You take the numbers and then you are going to confront them. You are going to compare them with what you can calculate and what was the results of the past surveys, the past censuses, and the data that we have at hand right now. And Prof. Moultrie was totally right. Demography is something that is quite mathematical. Just looking at a population pyramid, we can understand how the trend of the population is going to be in 20 years, 40 years. So in general, a population doesn't change drastically, except if there is a war or a big pandemic that we don't really understand. But fertility doesn't really jump from one year to the next, or mortality, even if we can accept that there were some distortion because of COVID. So they are indeed both right, because one is speaking with what they have gathered, what then they have estimated, and then the others, the researchers, are saying, listen, with what we have at hand right now, we believe that there is a distortion. Something doesn't make sense. Indeed, when the 10% database, that sample of the census is going to be released, it's going to be much easier for any researcher to really look at the data, to really look at the evolution of the fertility and see if there is or where exactly there is a problem. And what is interesting is that the more we are going to go into details, meaning into demographic variables, for instance, the education or the employment, or at the small area level, the more we are going to see eventual problems. At the global level, we should have quite an homogeneous population and quite a population that makes sense, even if the data have been imputed or corrected. At this stage, we should have indeed a population pyramid that makes sense with an age distribution that corresponds to the evolution of the South African population from the last census, taking into account something that is a bit hard to take into account because it's not always very well known, migrations.
Okay. Was it so there's a lot to do with the undercount, 31%. Was it a mistake to publish a census with such a big undercount?
Listen, we had, for instance, for years, even around still year 2000, the Chinese population was not known, plus or minus 10%, which already at that time was a good 100 millions. But that is obviously not the ideal in a census. You can, and listen, a census is never perfect. We always have in general an undercount. We had undercount indeed in Nigeria 2006. We have many undercounts, especially in this round of census with the COVID pandemic, some countries have decided not to collect the data until the situation was stable. Some other tried, some other completely failed. And some countries had to indeed correct the data to a large extent because of the problems that were linked to that pandemic. But 31% is indeed quite a large number, if it is the final number, and it is going to require quite a big exercise of correcting the data, imputing the data, to manage to have an estimate. Now, 31% is indeed something that is important.
Professor, thank you very much indeed. Professor Nancy Stigler is a full professor of demography at the Statistics and Population Studies Department in the University of the Western Cape. My thanks also to the Statistician General of South Africa, Rusinga Malaleka, and starting us off today, Professor Tom Moultrie, Professor of Demography and Director at the Centre for Actuarial Research at the University of Cape Town. That is your mediated conversation. Thank you very much indeed for being with us this morning. From Mdu, from Stanza, from Melissa, from Amandla, and from Mpho. Myself, look after yourself. We'll see you tomorrow. You with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning, 9 o'clock.
In our top stories, landmark victory for Intercape against police and at least 5 people killed in Mogadishu bomb attack. Good morning. The long-distance bus operator Intercape says police will now have to account to Parliament on why they are reluctant to formulate a plan to protect its passengers and drivers against violent attacks. This follows the bus operator's victory in the High Court in Makhanda last week. The court dismissed with costs in application the Eastern Cape Transport MEC, the South African Police Service and the SAPS National Commissioner had lodged to appeal a High Court ruling ordering them to develop an action plan to protect bus drivers and passengers. Johan Ferreira is the CEO of Intercape.
They have to, at some point in time. I think they're running out of options, and I think they've come to the end of the road. This one is very important. They now have to file that safety plan, which they've tried to not do. And we're going to be in front of the Police Portfolio Committee in Parliament on the 21st of August. So I think then they have to start to explain to Parliament why they are reluctant to file this plan and to actually take action.
Lobby group AfriForum says it's preparing to lay charges of corruption, fraud and money laundering against EFF leaders Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu. This after the former VBS chairperson Jifiwa Matodzi implicated the pair and some ANC leaders in the collapse of the bank as part of his plea deal. Matodzi pleaded guilty to 33 charges, which include corruption, theft and money laundering. He stated in his affidavit that the EFF received monthly donations and millions of rand of a so-called business loan from VBS since 2017 through a company called Skameka Projects. Kali Kriel is the CEO of AfriForum.
We have instructed our legal team to look at these facts and to make sure that we draw up this case that will be lodged with the police as soon as it has been drawn up. AfriForum is a watchdog organization. So firstly, I think it's important that we have equality before the law, but also secondly, that the rights be protected of those victims of crime. In this specific case, it's the clients of the VBS Bank, which are mostly poor people.
Robbers have shot dead a police officer and wounded 4 other officers at a petrol station in Bizana in the Eastern Cape. Police members were robbed of their firearms and cell phones. The suspects fled in a bakkie and a car following the incident, which happened last night. The police officers were returning from another crime scene when they ran into the robbers. The KwaZulu-Natal Midlands Emergency Medical Services EMS says 2 firefighters are still fighting for their lives in hospital following a blaze in which 6 of their colleagues died. The devastating blaze gutted a farm in the Boston area outside Howick in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands. Poachers are suspected to have started the fire in an attempt to drive animals out of the forest. Roland Robertson is the EMS Operations Director in the Midlands.
No one really knows exactly what was going on exactly on the place, but from what we understand is that they were trying to stop the fire by preventing it, by putting in a backburn to try and prevent it when the wind turned and came back for them. Well, it was a matter of just the heat, the wind, and everything contributed to everything. The way it happened, there was no way for them to even run because the fire surrounded them. The fire was contained shortly afterwards because they did have their air support vehicles that came in to also assist with the fire. And so the one patient is still on a ventilator in hospital, the other one's still in a critical condition in ICU.
And finally, police in Somalia say at least 5 people have been killed after a suicide bomber detonated a car filled with explosives outside a crowded cafe in the capital Mogadishu. Many others were wounded. The force of the large blast also caused damage to nearby buildings. No group has claimed responsibility. The BBC's Kat Wiener has the details.
Top Coffee is a popular bar near the presidential palace. And on Sunday evening it was full of young people watching the Euro 2024 final between Spain and England. Many had spilled out onto the pavement, catching the full force of the blast as the car bomb went off. Flames and smoke billowed into the night sky in the aftermath of the explosion, which destroyed part of the building. There's been no official claim of responsibility for the attack, but the Somali National News Agency has accused the militant group Al-Shabaab of planting the explosive device.
Recapping the top story, the long-distance bus operator Intercape says police will now have to account to Parliament on why they are reluctant to formulate a plan to protect its passengers and drivers against violent attacks. This follows the bus operator's victory in the High Court in Makhanda last week. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
S3 is bringing you the best in Indian cinema every Sunday at 2 p.m. Laugh, dance, get drawn into the drama, revved up with the action, and maybe, just maybe, shed a little tear. Catch Gagi on the 7th of July, Selfie on the 14th, Prince on the 21st, and Laila Majnu on the 28th. It's Indian cinema like you've never seen it before. Channel your best entertainment with Indian cinema only on S3. Open up.
Get ready to make your life easier with TV License's new website features. We upgraded to the secure iVery 3D payment gateway and the ability to manage your account information, view, print and download a detailed TV license statement. You can make website queries for an account and technical support, which has made things immensely easier. It is now a smooth, effortless process that can respond to all user inquiries quickly and efficiently. It is a great way to quickly get the help you need without worrying about a thing. Get started now and enjoy the convenience of TV License's new website features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV Licenses, do it for the convenience that matter.
Every girl dreams of her perfect wedding. The venue, decor, rings, guest list, the speeches, the vows. Seeing a tear roll down her groom's cheek. The $1 million budget. I think there's a typo in the script, no?
No, carry on. It's $1 million US, Chief.
Bespoke Cartier jewelry inspired by Meghan Markle. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of flowers and multiple designer wedding dresses are nothing out of the ordinary for Lillian Chu, a wedding planner to the super rich in East Asia. She only takes 10 weddings a year at an average cost of $1 million. Channel your best job with the $1 Million Wedding Planner this Thursday, the 18th of July at 10 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Ubuntu is embedded even in our lexicon, in our greetings, through celebration and in suffering. So for example, when my people greet each other, we say, Mamuka se, how did you sleep? And the response, Tamuka kana mamukao. I woke up well, if you woke up well. In times of death, we huddle around the bereaved through a practice called kubata maoko, and that literally translates to holding hands. And on a day like this, after 9 months of laboring and toiling and taking exams that are graded on a you-know-what, the neighborhood gathers around you and says, Makoro koto, congratulations to you. And the response is weirdly not thank you. The response to Makoro koto, congratulations to you, is Aiwa, dedu tese. No, the celebration belongs to us all. I am only well if you are well. I celebrate when you celebrate. And if suffering visits your home, it has come to mine too. Ours is a ceremony of reckoning. We are ensconced at this exact point in history where our world is collapsing in on itself. From South Sudan to Palestine, climate change and poverty, the world demands from us a praxis of radical compassion. Ours is a time when we must wield the power, prestige, and privilege. So my question to you is, whose suffering are you seizing? Whose hand are you holding? And whose burdens are you bearing?
Sharon Matongo is a Zimbabwean-born lawyer kicking us off on the Talking Point, 11 after 9 o'clock. Welcome to the show as we start a brand new week. It's a Monday morning. I'm Kathy Motlatlana. Pleasure to be in your company. And as always, looking forward to getting through the rest of the week with you. I mean, what a weekend it has been. Where were you over the weekend when the news of the attempted assassination on Donald Trump took place? Sure, I missed it by a couple of hours, and then I switch on the international news channels to see that the world had near fallen apart. Unbelievable, the events of this former weekend. And as you would have seen through much of yesterday, world leaders extending, of course, their messages of support to the former U.S. President Donald Trump. And of course, reiterating, the need for non-violence, especially within democratic states. So, absolutely something that I know we'll be keeping a close eye on as the week continues. And as it's a Monday morning today, Rwandese are going to the polls. They're going to be holding elections there. And it could well be a fourth time. For President Paul Kagame. He's looking, of course, to secure his fourth term in office now, and looking hopeful about the outcome. And he's putting in a target of 99% of the vote. 99% of the vote. Remember, 2017, he managed to get 99% of the vote. In 2003, he got 95% of the vote. In 2010, he got 93% of the vote. So, we could well actually even see 100% of the vote this time around. Who knows? Because how do you improve from 99%? How do you improve? there's only 1% remaining, right? And he, of course, believes he's still the man for the job. He says he's not going to be anointing any successor because, he doesn't want to leave the people in the hands of wrong people or wrong leaders. He's still, of course, the one that is the preferred candidate. And so that is also something for us to look at, which are the elections unfolding in Rwanda today. But I guess to bring it back home, what a weekend it has been. VBS has been, the name on a lot of people's lips following that explosive affidavit that was leaked to the media by Matodzi from the an affidavit he, of course, submitted with the NPA. We're going to be recapping Stephen's interview with Advocate Dalimpo for earlier on this morning, and of course take a look at what has previously been said by the EFF leaders themselves about the bank and whether or not they had derived any benefit from it. But just to remind ourselves, right, you have members of the ANC, members of the SACP. The SACP is also one of those that has been named as having derived some kind of benefit from VBS monies, and the EFF are all alleged to have benefited from transactions with the bank. Now, of course, with the EFF, the transactions of monies potentially is larger than perhaps what some of the other individuals or those associated with the parties, ANC and SACP, are said to have benefited, right? And we now, of course, also know that the EFF is no longer denying that it benefited from VBS monies. Advocate Dalimpo, in his interviews that he has done in the last 24 hours, has admitted that the EFF received VBS monies. Instead, he says there's no criminal liability on the part of the EFF. The monies they received were donations. And he would want us to believe that the EFF has never denied receiving money from VBS, which is not true. It's not true, Advocate Mpofu, that the EFF has always admitted receiving monies from VBS. Why do I say that? Well, listen to what the Deputy President of the EFF, Floyd Shivambu, said in May 2019 around this very question. At the time, it was largely due to reporting by Paulie van Wyk and Daily Maverick.
Okay, let's go back a little bit then. We know the money was the result of a crime. Now, no matter whether the EFF committed a crime one way or another, whatever the outcome of any process that goes forward, the EFF maybe unknowingly received money that was the proceeds of a crime. Is the EFF going to pay it back? Have you paid it back already?
No. You can't, Stephen, reason like that. I mean, that's just completely ridiculous. So if the DA has accepted that it received money from the Guptas, for example,
and they paid it back.
No, I'm just bear with me, please. Yeah, the DA says it receives money from the Guptas. Now, how will it know if that money is the money that the Guptas took from Eskom, or whether it's the money that Guptas legitimately earned from their investments, or is the money that
but they paid it back.
Or let me put it this way: how do you know whether the money was part of an investment, as it came from something called Vele Investments, or whether it came from the deposit takers?
What I'm asking is, now we know that the money was the proceeds of some crime.
No, how do we know it? Who's we?
So you're keeping the money then?
No, but which money are you talking about? I'm not even saying that Matodzi. Remember, Matodzi's affidavit is an affidavit of a convicted criminal. So it must be treated with caution in its first place. But I'm saying, even if you take it at face value, it doesn't say the things that you and Paulie says that it says. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying pay the money back, which money.
Okay.
I'm saying Matodzi's version, as you interpret it.
Okay, so we queued off the wrong bite there. I wanted us to play that one after we heard what Floyd Shivambu had to say, but that is Advocate Dalimpofu this morning in conversation with Stephen Grootes, and effectively, being asked the question, should the EFF pay back the money? Now that they know that these were monies that were proceeds of ill-gotten processes, ill-gotten gains. Mr. Matodzi was charged with 33 counts of corruption, theft, fraud, money laundering, at least. That is what he has been now convicted for. He says in his affidavit, after the EFF was making a lot of noise about Nkandla and the VBS money that they had given to the former President Jacob Zuma, he had a meeting with 3 of the EFF's leaders, but largely Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu in that meeting. And he then asked them to please turn down the heat, turn down the pressure. It's getting too much for VBS. They couldn't take it anymore. And then he says, in a subsequent meeting, it was said, no, what we will do is that we will donate 5 million rand to VBS as an initial payment, and then we will pay 1 million rand per month after that. All of that going into an account that is not, by the way, an EFF account. But Advocate Dalimpofu says, well, we didn't do anything wrong criminally. There is no criminal liability. But what about the morality? What about the ethics of it all? Knowing what we know now about VBS and those that suffered the most, can it be justified that a party like the EFF that says it represents the working class of this country, the poorest of the poor, is it fathomable that they can still justifiably say, yes, we received money from the VBS and there was nothing wrong, even in spite of everything that has happened? And yes, they have denied receiving money from VBS before. Here's a bite of Floyd Shivambu in 2019 doing exactly that.
The issue of Polly van Veek and Dilma Maverick is that the story which she wrote yesterday or 2 days ago is the same thing she wrote the first time. I think she has in November last year. It's 7 or 6 articles now. They are repeating the same thing. And we have clarified that. And we have taken a decision that we do not want to really dignify things that are just repetitions. And that is the same allegation that she came to make in the press conference of the EFF. So if you go and check the first press conference of the EFF that dealt with this issue of VBS, she asked about a company called Mauna and Grand Tanzania, and she actually even spoke about the payments in Durban and everything else there. So these are not new things. And we have since clarified that the EFF has never been involved with VBS, and we've never benefited anything from VBS. And that is a final position. And the good thing about this is that not even one of the law enforcement agencies has ever brought an inquiry to the extent that seeks to question whether the EFF was involved or not, because they all have admitted that the EFF was not involved.
Well, it seemingly is not the case, because the one thing that Advocate Mpofu, speaking on behalf of the EFF, does not deny now is the fact that they received monies from VBS. He instead says these were donations and they were not part of the ill-gotten gains or the money laundering that the officials of the VBS were very clearly involved in. Do you believe the version that has been put on the table by the EFF? Do you think that the party needs to pay back the monies, even if they call them donations? Do they need to pay those monies back? I'd love to hear from you. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. I'm back with your calls.
Nelson Mandela once said,
"It is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it.
SAFM urges you to identify those in need around you and to do what you can to make a difference to them. Tata Mandela went further to say, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we led. SAFM celebrates Mandela Month.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, let's kick it off in the Eastern Cape this morning. Mzi, good morning to you.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
But Toyi must not bore me, must not waste any time. She must arrest these crooks who are here portraying themselves as revolutionary, as people who care about black people's plight. They must be arrested. We have waited for a very long time. They've been denying, now they are accepting. These are the people, just after the election, we were told these are the progressive black caucus, and the ANC must join in hands to work with them because they are black. Black people who are making our people miserable. These are the same people who are Malema will be in conducting with, working together with Panyaza Lesotho and given so many positions in Johannesburg. We don't have minutes about that. But Panyaza Lesotho is more than willing to give them. Ekuruleni, for instance. They are worse than white people. You always focus on white people, but our own black people who are making sure that black people are not progressive, they must be arrested.
Mzi, why must they be arrested if even on the part of Matodzi, he says these monies were donations? That seems to have been the general agreement between the two parties, if we are to believe what both Matodzi has said on record and what Advocate Dalimba Mpofu has also admitted to on record.
One, they denied that they received money. If these were the donation for EFF, why this donation now were to be given to Shivambo's brother, younger brother? The EFF, I believe, they've got their own account. Why these donations were not? And these donations were made after the EFF criticized this bank. And to close their mouth, they have to give them something. Since then, they were given something. They have never made any issue about the money that was given to President Zuma. Even the stupid can see what is happening here.
So Mzi,
somebody else, if it's Ramaphosa about the money in Palapala, did you hear them? They were all out.
So Mzi,
the recall of Ramaphosa now is them.
So you think that it will be difficult for the EFF to argue that these donations were not an exchange of their silence?
Pardon?
You think it will be difficult for the EFF to argue that they received the donations, but it was not in exchange for their silence?
It will be difficult. That's within Dalimbovu. He cannot explain. He cannot explain that. You can see, because it is indefensible. You cannot defend something which is like this. It's clear.
Okay. Mzin, the Eastern Cape, let's leave it there. In Matlosana, Batuka, good morning.
It's Atuka.
Atuka. Oh, apologies for that, Atuka. Welcome to the show, Atuka.
Thank you, Susan. I wanted to talk about Donald Trump assassination.
Attempt, yes.
Yeah, the attempt. Some of us saw it coming. And unfortunately, Katie, I now have to criticize your colleagues abroad. People saw this coming, and they used specific language against Donald Trump. You can say whatever you want to say about Trump, but you will never find a clip of Donald Trump, saying some of the things that the media in the States have said about him. People like Tucker Carlson reported on this, but assassination attempts are next. Are you not worried about your safety, Mr. Trump? He was called a conspiracy theorist. Now it has happened.
Atuka, how did you see it coming, you say?
Okay, first, as KC, they started to character assassinate him. They started with that rape accusation, and I take rape very seriously. But that rape accusation is laughable. They started with that, and then they wanted to bankrupt him. Remember, in the New York case, even the judge said that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. Every expert said, no, judge, you're wrong, but they stuck to their guns. And then they went, and then they tried to put him in jail. Every time they did something, he got more and more popular. So the next step is to what? To eliminate him. I'm not saying the Democrats said to that young man, hey, go kill Trump. But in a volatile country like America, eventually, if you say somebody is a Hitler, somebody is a threat to democracy, somebody must be stopped. This guy is a danger. This guy is the best. Some radical young man out there is going to take that to heart and say, I need to be the one to stop this guy.
Atuka, a lot of the criticism that Trump is facing is not new. It's criticism that was there before he was even president, during his presidency, and post his presidency. Let me do this, Atuka. I'm going to ask you to stay on the line. It's 9:30. Let me take the latest news headlines. We'll continue in a moment.
Good morning. In the headlines, 5 suspected illegal miners have been arrested at Matonzi mine in Malamulele, Limpopo. The suspects were found processing gold. The long-distance bus operator Intercape says police will now have to account to Parliament on why they are reluctant to formulate a plan to protect its passengers and drivers against violent attacks. This follows the bus operator's victory in the High Court in Makhanda last week. And lobby group AfriForum says it's preparing to lay charges of corruption, fraud and money laundering against EFF leaders Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu. This after the former VBS chairperson Chifiwa Matodzi implicated the pair and some ANC leaders in the collapse of the bank as part of his plea deal. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. It is the open line, 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial this morning. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. That's where I'm taking your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes. On the line is Atuka from Matlosana. He's talking about the Trump failed assassination attempt, and he says that it's been a long time in the making. So Atuka, maybe let's pick up where we paused the conversation before the news headlines. I think the point that you were making is that you believe that the criticism around Trump is what set the stage for him to be assassinated.
No, Siskete, I'm saying that the rhetoric largely from the media, criticism for Trump is there. It's fair as somebody is running for office. Yes, he will be criticized. But the biased rhetoric against Donald Trump is what might have led to inspiring that young man to say that if nobody will stop Trump, I will stop him. This man is the next Hitler. This man is a danger to democracy. This man is a danger to the world and so forth. Even though under him there were no wars, at least the major conflict studies. Even though under him there were none of that. Under all of these other so-called knights, presidential and peaceful people, we had Libya, we had Iraq, we had all of those things. But now if you're constantly saying on the news, this person is a liar, this person is Trump, is Hitler, this person is a threat to our democracy, We must stop him. We must fight him. Even Biden said Trump needs a bullseye, right? So those things contributed to that young man who's clearly unfit mentally to taking a shot at Trump.
Yeah, look, Atuka, the reality is that the media in the US in particular has become largely polarized when it comes to, the Democrat-Republican line. And so the criticism around Trump that you're talking about, yes, can be seen from some media outlets, but if you tune into other, stations, you're likely to get a very different view on the extreme end too.
Actually, I follow American media. I will even give you an extreme example. Let's use Fox, because I know that the usual defense is Fox. Fox will defend Trump, right? But when they talk about the Democrats, they do not use the rhetoric that is used by the far left, which is very extremist for people that are supposed to be peace-loving. Fox will even criticize Trump. Fox will not even show certain things of Trump, but you will not get it on that other side. So it's them, the mainstream media, Siswam.
Okay.
Even the way they covered it, it took them like hours and hours before places like CNN called it a failed assassination attempt. They said he fell in one report.
Yeah.
They said
look,
an incident.
Look, you know, Atuka, the reality is, I think, the evolving landscape, right, especially around media coverage, especially to what we see it as in the US, has been something of discussion and debate even in newsrooms, right? Because there are those that have the view that the world will eventually move in that direction, that you will have media companies come out to say, actually, I support the left or I support the right, and that everything that they do then feeds into their position. I don't particularly agree with that. I'm not of the view. I don't think that the media has to pick a side, but there are those who believe that it is inevitable that we end up largely where the US is. But you're right. Look at the consequences for it,